Chapter 6:13. The boy was stunned. I went to a friend's house in the afternoon. However, when he came back, the neighbor told him that his mother was yelling at home and throwing a tantrum at his grandfather. When he went back, he specially told his mother not to bully his grandfather like that in the future. After all, his grandfather was getting old. At that time, his mother was very angry and did not listen to him at all. He went back to the house to take a look. At that time, his grandfather was so angry that he drank the doctor's medicine and fell asleep. A few hours later, he went to call his grandfather for dinner. In the end, he found that his grandfather's body was cold and he was not breathing at all. He was shocked and quickly called his parents. At that time, they were also shocked. When they saw the bowl of medicine on the table, they said that his grandfather was killed by the doctor in this clinic. "Mom, Grandpa, did he really fall?" The old man's grandson asked. The woman panicked. He just fell. After that, he got up and was fine." The boy's eyes flashed with disappointment. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" She didn't tell you because she knew that the old man had a bad fall, but she was angry at that time and didn't want to care. In the end, when she wanted to see how the old man was doing, he was already dead. "That's all the more reason she couldn't tell you," Jing Yunzhao said. The old man's arm was broken. At that time, he must have been very angry. It was normal for him to be shocked, angry, scared, and pushed. It was just a coincidence that the old man drank the medicine before he died, so they directly framed Grandpa gone. Judging from the couple's reaction, they must have known the truth long ago. They were just afraid that it would be as they guessed, so they recklessly came to settle the score. They lied to their conscience and hypnotized themselves. In addition, the neighbors had heard their argument. Now that he was dead, outsiders would definitely think that they were the ones who forced the old man to his death. Gossip was a fearful thing. In order to avoid such rumors, they had to find someone to be the scapegoat. In addition, Grandpa Gone often held free medical consultations. In the eyes of some people, he was considered a rich old man in this area. If they could extort some money, it would be an unexpected gain. "Mom, it can't be like that, right?" The boy's face was full of disbelief. In fact, he was already suspicious and puzzled. When his grandfather died, he wanted to help, but his mother did not let him touch his grandfather's body and insisted that he was killed by the doctor. The woman's body trembled. In the next second, she raised her head fiercely. "The old man was killed by your grandfather. He drank your grandfather's medicine." "Really? I don't know if you have any common sense about the law." Jing Yunzhao said coldly, "The police are qualified to examine the body. Do you think it's okay if you don't agree?" Grandpa Gone stood behind Jing Yunzhao and couldn't help but shake his head. "Let's talk about this matter openly. There's no one else here. If it's just an accident, then no one can be blamed. When this old man was alive, he thought about his son and grandson every day. It's impossible that he didn't want the two of you to be well." Grandpa Gone said. "Mom, how could you do this? I thought it was really..." The big boy suddenly broke down. "How can you do this to Grandpa? It's fine if you don't let me visit him normally, but when I do, you let an old man suffer so much. Now that he's dead, are you satisfied?" The couple's faces contorted as they glanced at the door in a panic. "Son, don't listen to their nonsense. Your grandfather was treated to death. It's true that his arm was broken, but that was because your grandfather accidentally fell down." The man hurriedly opened his mouth and stared at the old man. "I can't win against you. You just don't want to take out 1 million, right? Since you can't explain what happened, then give us 200,000. With 200,000, we'll leave immediately." It wasn't that they had to take the money, but they wanted the neighbors to see. If they couldn't get the money, then it would prove that they were in the wrong. When the time came, they would be spat to death. Chapter 6:14. Grandpa Gon was kind-hearted and soft-hearted. He didn't want to argue with them, but when he thought of the deceased, he wanted to relent. Jing Yunzhao, however, went straight to the point. Grandpa, it's not a matter of money. They're obviously trying to make you the scapegoat. Don't even mention 200,000 yuan, even if you gave him 100 yuan, people would still say that you're guilty. This money couldn't be given out no matter what. If it was given, it would be compensation, and compensation would mean that they had done something wrong. When Jing Yunzhao said that, the man looked at her with a ferocious expression. The people outside couldn't hear the commotion inside, so they all raised their heads to look. The woman on the ground immediately rushed out and shouted, "How can this family be so vicious? My father-in-law did fall, but he didn't die at that time. Who knows if it was this quack doctor's medicine that made him pass away? They're not willing to take any responsibility, not even $200,000. These rich people are trying to force poor people like us to death." When she said that, there was a lot of discussion. Everyone more or less had the mentality of hating the rich, so they were all pointing fingers at Jing Yunzhao. Jing Yunzhao said, "Are you trying to act shamelessly? Well then, we won't give you any leeway. We'll call the police. If it's found out that my grandfather didn't do it, don't blame us for suing you for framing him. He's a doctor. The damage to his reputation will be borne by your family. Oh right, I almost forgot. Don't underestimate the autopsy results. They might even be able to find out if he fell or was pushed by someone. If it was done by someone, even if it wasn't intentional, you'll still have to go to jail." After Jing Yunzhao said that, the woman stopped talking. Her face was full of panic, and her body was trembling. "You can't call the police. If they do an autopsy, my father-in-law will die without a complete body." Jing Yunzhao looked at her coldly and made a phone call. She originally wanted to give them a chance to bury the old man properly. She didn't want to investigate whether it was an accident or not. However, the couple insisted on slandering the old man. She couldn't stand it. Seeing that Jing Yunzhao had called the police, the family immediately wanted to leave with the body. However, Jing Yunzhao's men blocked the way. The man tried to move but was pushed away and fell to the ground in a sorry state. The big boy was dumbfounded. Seeing his parents' reaction, he already knew what was going on. "Classmate, I'm sorry. It's our fault. Please let us leave with the body. My parents won't say anything in the future. If the police come, it'll be over. If they could bring the body to be cremated before the police arrived, there would still be time." Although he had let his grandfather down, he did not want his mother to go to jail. "Yunzhao, forget it. Where it's possible to make mistakes, one should be lenient." The old man sighed behind her. It wasn't that he didn't know right from wrong, but his deceased brother definitely didn't want his son or daughter-in-law to suffer. He was already dead. Why would he want to cause trouble for his children and grandchildren? Jing Yunzhao frowned slightly. She was a little unwilling. After all, if they went back on their word and cremated the body before causing trouble, it would be difficult for them to defend themselves. "I can let them go, but you have to make them tell the truth and record it as evidence. As long as they don't cause trouble, I promise I won't leak it," Jing Yunzhao said again. When she said that, the boy breathed a sigh of relief and quickly dragged his mother over. "Mom, tell the truth. It's better to be gossiped about than to go to jail, right?" The woman glared at her. After all, they were the weak. Normally, doctors would choose to keep the peace when they encountered such a situation. However, they didn't expect to kick an iron plate. This girl wasn't normal at all. Chapter 6:15. The woman stared at Jing Yunzhao, feeling extremely vexed. The man next to her was so angry that he wanted to go up and hit him, but he had already realized that Jing Yunzhao was quite strong. In addition, the police might arrive soon. By then, it would be too late for them to leave, so they could only endure it. The woman opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but she was at a loss for words. When her son saw this, his eyes turned red. "Mom! What's going on? Tell me." He had always known that his parents were not good to his grandfather. His grandfather was not good with words. In the past, he only knew that his father was neglected because of work. This caused his father to ignore him, and they had always lived separately. His grandfather lived in an old house, so there was no one to take care of him. After all, he had to go to school. If he added more time, his parents would nag, so they usually visited his grandfather once a week or two. However, because it was the holidays recently, his parents had been visiting him frequently. He originally thought that they wanted to be filial to his grandfather, but when he heard from the neighbor next door, he found out that someone wanted to buy his grandfather's old house. His parents wanted him to sell the house. Your dad and I wanted him to agree to sell the house today, but he said that he had no place to live if he sold the house. Your dad yelled at him and left. I was annoyed, so I called him a stubborn old man. Then, I argued with your grandpa. Anyway, I don't know what happened, but your grandpa fell on the ground and lay there for a while. I was angry at that time. I thought that you were going home, so I went to cook. And I thought that your grandpa was deliberately trying to scare me. After about 10 minutes, he got up and went back to his room, so I didn't think too much about it. At this point, the woman recalled and panicked. With tears and snot, she said, "Then, I didn't expect your grandfather to be gone." There were some things that she could not say in front of her son. The reason why the old man fell was because she pushed him in a fit of anger and scolded him for not dying. However, at that time, she was just angry. She never expected that the old man would really be gone because of this fall. "Auntie, you seem to be holding back. Do you want to save it for the police?" Jing Yunzhao did not show any mercy. The woman was stunned and her body trembled. She was in despair. I was the one who pushed him. At that time, I didn't think that something would happen to him. The woman was forced into a corner and spoke in a low voice. When the old man went back to bed, her husband came back and asked about the situation. At that time, she told him the truth. At that time, her husband didn't say anything. He even scolded, "Old bastard," and didn't let her care about it at all. He wanted to leave the old man alone for a while and make him panic. Later, when they found out that he had stopped breathing, the couple knew that once others knew that the old man had passed away, someone might call the police. After all, the neighbors all knew that they had quarreled with the old man. Under pressure, he saw the bowl of medicine at the side and thought of pinning the blame on Physician Gone. They all knew about Dr. Gone. They heard that he was a very good person and often did good deeds. They thought that such an old man would definitely not have a strong temper. If he was scared by them, not only would they lose money, but they would also take the blame for them. She just didn't expect him to have such a stingy granddaughter. When she was moving the body, she actually kept glancing at the old man. At that time, she realized that there was something wrong with the old man's arm. She hurriedly tried to protect it, but it was too late. Chapter 6:16. The couple regretted what they had done. If they had known that they would be discovered by a little girl, they would have cremated the body first before coming to cause trouble. However, they were afraid that the doctor wouldn't admit it after the body was gone, so the woman couldn't stop crying, but Jing Yunzhao knew that she was crying for herself and not for the life. In their eyes, the old man was old and would pass away sooner or later, so it didn't matter when he would die. The woman didn't dare to lie anymore. After all, time was passing by. The longer she stayed, the higher the risk of being arrested by the police. He might as well tell the whole truth in full detail. However, after she said everything, the couple's son was completely stunned. He had thought that his grandfather had accidentally fallen down, and he also thought that maybe his parents couldn't tell whether his grandfather had died from falling down or from drinking medicine, so they came to cause trouble. But he didn't expect his parents to deliberately shift the blame onto Dr. Gon. "Mom. You guys are too much." The boy immediately hugged his head and cried. Although he knew that his father didn't treat his grandfather well because of his grandfather's irresponsibility when he was young, he was already old. Even if he didn't have feelings, he shouldn't be so heartless. The parents' faces were filled with panic and fear. "Little girl, you said, you two bastards." Before Jing Yunzhao could say anything, Grandpa Gon roared angrily and stared at the man. "Every time your father talked to me, he would never say anything bad about you. He even mentioned that he might move away from here in the future. He already thought about agreeing to it. I think that if it weren't for your bad attitudes, the house would have been sold long ago." Would the old man be able to sell the house in peace if they quarreled every time they met? If the house was sold, the old man would have no place to live, so he could only live with his son and daughter-in-law. It would be fine if it was only for a day or two, but if it continued, there would be no peace in the family. The couple was thinking about money, while the old man was thinking about harmony. That was why they were holding on, but they didn't expect the result to be like this. Jing Yunzhao sighed in his heart and stopped the recording. "The two of you will also grow old one day. I hope that when the time comes, your sons will forget what you've done today." Scram! Jing Yunzhao spoke. This boy obviously couldn't understand his parents' actions. His age was still pure and beautiful, and his mind didn't have so many disgusting and dirty things. Now that he was provoked by his parents' actions, in another 10 years, he would definitely have a reaction. Once he had a disagreement with his parents, he would probably think of his parents' past. How could he not mention it? The two of them might be able to hide for now, but they wouldn't be able to hide in the future. Karma was a cycle of retribution, and it was still too early. As soon as Jing Yunzhao relented, the parents immediately reacted and hurriedly carried the body out of the clinic. When the boy saw his parents like this, the disappointment on his face deepened. The onlookers didn't understand and were about to ask when the woman said, "It's all a misunderstanding." Without further explanation, he hurriedly led his men to deal with the funeral. The old man's face was solemn. He went out and flipped the "Open for Business" sign over. The crowd discussed for a while, and when they saw the police come and leave, no one paid any attention to them, so they slowly left. Sigh, you reap what you sow, you reap what you sow. I've long heard that the old man didn't care about his children when he was young. Look, now that he's old, his children are taking revenge on him. Grandpa Gon's hands were still trembling as he poured himself a cup of calming tea. Even pitiful people were detestable. In another few decades, the tables would turn. Chapter 617. After Grandpa Gon sighed, he looked at Jing Yunzhao and said, "Do you know why I asked you to let them go? They don't need to be punished by the law. The rest of their lives are still long." Jing Yunzhao muttered and said. Grandpa Gon choked and shook his head. "You really have a stubborn temper. Fortunately, you are a medical student." Grandpa Gon couldn't help but roll his eyes. He knew that Jing Yunzhao had a mysterious master behind her, but he didn't know what kind of person that master was. Later on, he never heard her mention it. However, compared to that master, the one who had a greater influence on her should be the pharmaceutical master, Su Jingji. He had met this person once at the county hospital. Jing Yunzhao's temperament was somewhat similar to Su Jingji's. She had a cold heart, a cold personality, and would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Whoever harmed her or schemed against her, she would definitely return the favor tenfold or 100-fold. This temperament was good, but also bad. When Jing Yunzhao practiced medicine, she always remembered that people should do good deeds and accumulate virtue. Therefore, she didn't take the initiative to do bad things. If she didn't study medicine and didn't always remember medical ethics, sooner or later, she would be affected by her somewhat vicious temper. Once she reached the point where her heart was stone, how many true friends would she have by her side? Su Jingji often guided her, but her personality was sharp. Although he could help her a lot, it only made her stronger and calmer. When water is full, it will overflow. It was better to leave a little for everything. Only then would she be like a child. Jing Yunzhao's eyes flashed with a trace of gentleness. I'm afraid that there will be fewer patients in the next few days. Is it okay? She wasn't stupid. Grandpa Gon probably already thought of her as a hedgehog. He was afraid that she would prick anyone she met. He trained himself to be like an iron wall that no one could get close to. Grandpa Gon adjusted his breathing and his complexion recovered a lot. It's good that I can rest for a few days. I haven't finished reading the handwritten book you sent a few days ago. Thinking of this, Grandpa Gon's old face finally revealed a trace of a smile. However, his old face also turned red. When he first met Jing Yunzhao, he thought that he would teach this child well in the future. After all, such talent was really rare. However, he didn't expect that Jing Yunzhao didn't need him to teach at all. Every time he saw her, she would make shocking improvements. If he didn't talk about her age, he wouldn't even doubt that she was an old doctor. Moreover, their statuses had already been reversed. Jing Yunzhao would often say that he wasn't clear about the medicinal decoctions and the principles behind them. Even though she was his junior, the one who took advantage of it was him, the old man. Yunzhao, will they try to steal the recording in private? Gon Jinchen asked. Jing Yunzhao and Grandpa Gon were both stunned. They turned their heads and stared at Gon Jinchen with the same expression. Gon Jinchen was startled. Did I say something wrong? Why was she looking at him like that? Brat, I still think that Yunzhao has too many ideas. I think you have a lot too. Grandpa Gon snorted. Steal it in private. It was obvious that the parents had evil intentions but no guts. Moreover, they weren't stupid. Things like recordings could be copied. What was the point of stealing it? Why would they do something so boring? What's more, they couldn't even take care of themselves right now. To that pair of parents, the most important thing, other than immediately settling the funeral, was to win back their son's heart. Why would they come find trouble with Jing Yunzhao? Moreover, the parents' family background was ordinary. They didn't have any abilities. They knew that Jing Yunzhao had some tricks up his sleeve. Why would they bother? Chapter 6:18. Gon Jinchen's face flushed red after being glared at by Grandpa Gon. He also felt that his IQ had been destroyed by the old man and the young man in front of him. However, Gon Jinchen was already used to this situation. Ever since he met Jing Yunzhao, he felt that his IQ wasn't online. He was often despised by his grandfather, as if he was picked up from the roadside. Especially in the field of medicine, he was becoming less and less confident. He even wondered if he should choose medicine when he applied for university. After all, it didn't seem to be his field of expertise. Of course, he didn't dare to say this to his grandfather. After all, Grandpa Gon always hoped that he could inherit his mantle and make the Gon family a scholarly family that practiced medicine for generations. He wanted the Gon family's descendants to be tainted with the light of medicine. Yun Zhao, why can't I get through to your phone today? Gon Jinchen immediately changed the topic while helping Grandpa Gon tidy up the things in the room. It's nothing. There was a call that I didn't want to answer, so I put it on silent mode, Jing Yunzhao said. Gon Jinchen paused. It can't be He Jiaxi, right? Zihua called and said that for some reason, He Jiaxi has been looking for you like crazy. She even called the Tang family and begged Tang Zihua to contact you. Gon Jinchen added. Halfway through his sentence, the corner of his mouth twitched. What did you do to her? Why do I feel like she's a little too crazy for you now? It wasn't just crazy. One had to know that the person He Jiaxi didn't dare to contact the most was Tang Zihua. She didn't want to offend Tang Zihua and the He family wouldn't have a good ending. After she returned from abroad, she didn't even bother Tang Zihua once. But now, in order to find Jing Yunzhao, she actually begged the Tang family. It was too strange. The corner of Jing Yunzhao's mouth hooked up. His eyes were cold as he smiled. Do you want to try? Gon Jinchen was stunned. In the next second, his face stiffened, seeing your sinister smile. I think, forget it, he must have done something bad to her. Jing Yunzhao was so proficient in medicine that he might have poisoned her. He didn't want to try. Although Jing Yunzhao was indeed worthy of others going crazy for her, he still had some self-awareness. Jing Yunzhao was a girl that most people could only look up to. In the beginning, when he found out that Jing Yunzhao knew both medicine and martial arts, he was secretly moved. He even thought that since Grandpa liked her, if she became his girlfriend, it would be a perfect thing. But later on, he found out that it wasn't the case at all. As her friend, he could not keep up with her pace. If he were her boyfriend, he would only be able to look up to her. The distance between them was like the Milky Way. He didn't have any special abilities, so he definitely couldn't cross it. Moreover, when he treated Jing Yunzhao as a friend, even though he felt like he couldn't keep up, he still felt a little proud and lucky. But when he treated her as someone he was pursuing, all that was left in his heart were the negative feelings of inferiority and helplessness. He wasn't a stubborn person. If taking a step back could open the sea and sky, he would choose without a doubt. Also, he had asked Tang Zihua in private. In the end, he found that the Tang family's golden grandson was the same as him. They both flinched and didn't do anything other than look up to her. His heart suddenly felt better. He didn't have the courage to pursue someone that even the crown prince wasn't worthy of. It was better to treat her as a friend or even an older brother. Yun Zhao, you can hide for one day, but you can't hide forever. Right now, He Jiaxi can't find you, but when you go to school, she can directly stop you. Chapter 6:19. Gon Jinchen said with a bright smile. Although he didn't have the maturity of an adult, he was indeed a handsome boy. No wonder so many girls in school had a crush on him. Who said I was hiding? Jing Yunzhao snorted. I just made her anxious for a little longer. As for when she finds me, it doesn't matter. Gon Jinchen was suddenly speechless. Can you not be so confident? You're making me feel like an idiot. Gon Jinchen really wanted to crack open her head to see what was inside. Jing Yunzhao stood in front of the medicine cabinet. He had just finished checking a type of medicine when he heard Gon Jinchen's words. A mischievous smile appeared on his face. You said it yourself. Are you admitting that your IQ isn't good? I remember when someone first met me, she was very arrogant. Her body was shining so brightly that it almost blinded my eyes. At that time, Gon Jinchen didn't look sideways and looked at her with an extremely disdainful gaze. Especially when she had just moved into the district with the cousins, she hadn't seen him for a few days. He was always avoiding her and didn't pay attention to her at all. Speaking of the past, Gon Jinshin simply wanted to find a hole to crawl into. You were a famous person in school at that time. I was also deceived. Gon Jinshin laughed dryly. That Zhao Hongye really wasn't a good person. She caused everyone to think that Jing Yunzhao wasn't a good person. With those rumors, how could he think that Jing Yunzhao wasn't bad? He even wanted to ask his grandfather to chase her out, however, this couldn't be blamed on him. 3 people made a tiger. He subconsciously wanted to avoid people with bad reputations. Jing Yunzhao was delighted, as compensation. After school starts, will you help me with my class matters? That teacher Qi always wanted to enslave her. He clearly knew that she wasn't used to interacting with others, but he always made her personally collect homework from her classmates. It was simply torture. Gon Jinshin's mouth twitched. He had never seen such a person before. The students in the class were all envious of Jing Yunzhao because she had the least amount of homework. In the words of the class teacher, it was a waste of time to ask her to do all that homework. Not only that, Jing Yunzhao even had enough authority to speak in front of the teacher. She was even asked to substitute for the teacher when it was inconvenient. Although it was a little tiring, it was dazzling. In the eyes of the students, she was not only a top student, but also a god of studying. She, on the other hand, didn't like to be in the limelight. She was somewhat different from the average person. Gon Jinshin had nothing to say, so he agreed. After all, those class chores were not difficult. He was a boy, so he was more or less prideful. When there was a chance to prove himself, he would not back down. Therefore, he was very willing to help. When Old Man Gon saw that the 2 of them were so happy, his mood improved a lot. However, after a few days, the number of patients in the clinic decreased by a lot. There were also some rumors outside. However, as time passed, another rumor spread, saying that the old man who passed away died from falling to his death. Because that family didn't come to cause trouble, people slowly believed this rumor. In addition, Old Man Gon's reputation had always been good and he usually did many good deeds. Therefore, it didn't take long for everything to return to normal. As time passed, Jing Yunzhao successfully became a student preparing for the exam. Xiao Haiqing also returned from Serene City. Her entire person had changed a lot. Xue Haiyang and James had already studied the fake wine recipe and didn't find any problems. Therefore, they had already started brewing the first batch. There wouldn't be any trouble for a period of time. Therefore, compared to them, Jiang Rong's life was more miserable. Chapter 620. Xiao Daoan was petty and had a bad temper. The first day he found out that Jiang Rong had let him down, he beat her up and then took Xiao Jun's hair to verify their parent-child relationship. Fortunately, the results were confirmed, so Xiao Daoan's attitude improved. But even so, Jiang Rong's days were not easy. Xiao Daoan used to dote on her, but now, with Xiao Haiqing fanning the flames, he fired the nanny and Jiang Rong had to do all the housework herself. With such a wife, even if the son was confirmed to be his biological son, he still felt uncomfortable. Xiao Daoan felt that Jiang Rong did not teach her son well, so he spoke harshly to her. Jiang Rong didn't dare to get a divorce. If she did, all her efforts over the years would be for naught. Although she was still young, she couldn't be compared to those little girls in their early 20s. She had also given birth to a son. If she got a divorce because of an affair, she definitely wouldn't be able to get custody of her son. At that time, the mother and son wouldn't be able to see each other. If Xiao Daoan remarried, her son might be the next Xiao Haiqing. She was well aware of how she treated Xiao Haiqing. Xiao Haiqing was a girl and she, as a stepmother, could not even tolerate her. If another woman came, she would definitely not be able to accept her son. Therefore, she suffered bitterly. In the past, she framed Xiao Haiqing with a few words, but now, she treated her like an ancestor, afraid that she would say something unfavorable to her. On this day, Jiang Rong drove Xiao Haiqing to the school gate. When she saw Jing Yunzhao and the others, she smiled fawningly. Haiqing, wait. Seeing that Xiao Haiqing was about to enter the school gate, Jiang Rong quickly opened the trunk and took out a few bags. I almost forgot. I heard that these snacks taste good. Share them with your classmates. When she said that, Suchu and Gan Jinshan's eyes widened in disbelief. Xiao Haiqing looked at her condescendingly and took the bags expressionlessly. Auntie Jiang, you've never attended a parent-teacher conference, right? Jiang Rong was stunned. Our class will invite our parents over this week. My dad definitely won't be free, so you can come. Is that okay? Xiao Haiqing asked again. No problem, no problem. What time is it? Is there anything else you need to prepare? Jiang Rong was extremely obedient. Friday, 8:00 in the morning, Xiao Haiqing said. After her mother passed away, she was the only one who didn't have anyone by her side at every parent-teacher meeting. It wasn't until she entered high school that she and Jing Yunzhao were in the same class as her. Therefore, she paid more attention to Jing Yunzhao from the beginning. Jiang Rong took note of it with a serious face. She looked like a competent stepmother. However, other than them, no one knew what Jiang Rong had done in the past. After Xiao Haiqing finished speaking, she turned around and walked towards the school with Jing Yunzhao. Only then did a smile appear on her face. Yunzhao, tell me, why was I so stupid in the past? It's really not good to go against her. Seeing her like this, I can't help but think that I should have done something unscrupulous earlier, just like her. Are you going to become twisted and evil? Jing Yunzhao's lips parted slightly and a few words floated out. Xiao Haiqing was amused. It's great to be the bad guy. No one dares to mess with you. But there's one thing that's not so good. Villains always end up being tortured in the end. With your level, you're still far from being a villain. Besides, if you're a villain, who's the main character? Jiang Rong. Do you think she has that kind of physique? Jing Yunzhao directly replied. Chapter 621. Xiao Haiqing pursed her lips and laughed. If she was the villain, then the protagonist who could overthrow her in the future would most likely be her cheap brother, right? Maybe there would even be a big battle between the siblings. Although Xiao Jun was innocent, Jiang Rong had once treated her with a carefree attitude, so how could she not be innocent? Xiao Jun was her younger brother. If he was still a baby in swaddling clothes, then it would be fine. After all, his personality could still be changed, but now that he was old enough to remember, under Jiang Rong's education, Xiao Jun did not have her as an older sister in his heart. Recently, he even said that she was not a good person, and his face was full of hatred. It was said that 3 years old could see the old. Xiao Jun combined the characteristics of the person she hated the most. She knew that she did not have the ability to change his personality. This younger brother was still young. She would not be like Jiang Rong, who had no bottom line and did not do anything to him. However, she would not care too much. How he grew up had nothing to do with her. It was impossible for her to take care of her enemy's child. She was not so soft-hearted. Haiqing, did Auntie Jiang take the wrong medicine? I used to think that her smile was hypocritical, but why is it scarier now? Suchu curled her lips and quickly followed, asking. That's right, I took the wrong medicine. But since the food is already here, it would be a waste if I don't eat it, right? Xiao Haiqing smiled. When they reached the class, she immediately divided the snacks among herself. There were several big bags of snacks, and they could not finish them all, so everyone in the class had a share. Xiao Haiqing's eyebrows were raised, and her body exuded an amiable temperament. Many students felt that it was a little strange. Look at Xiao Haiqing, isn't she different from before? I feel that she seems to be easier to get along with. A classmate said. Is that so? Why do I feel that she is scarier? The classmate next to him said softly. In the past, Xiao Haiqing had a short temper. She would scold people at the slightest disagreement. Even a glare from her eyes could scare people. But now, with a smile on her lips, she looked quite scary. Just be happy that you have food to eat. Xiao Haiqing doesn't have it easy either. I saw her stepmother at the school gate just now. She's quite pretty. I'm sure she has Haiqing's father under her thumb. Otherwise, no one would care about her, another person chimed in. Everyone knew about Xiao Haiqing's situation. In her first year of high school, she often got into fights and caused trouble. Although she wasn't caught, she was talked about a lot. Her homeroom teacher asked her to call her parents, but none of her parents came. Some teachers went to visit her home, but it was said that no one went back after they came back. They also heard about the specific reason. It was said that when the teacher went to Xiao Haiqing's house, she didn't see Xiao Haiqing's father. She only met her stepmother. This stepmother was especially gentle. No matter what the teacher said, the stepmother would represent Xiao Haiqing and apologize. Not only did she apologize, she even gave the teacher money and gifts in front of everyone in the office after the teacher left. This scared the teachers so much that they didn't dare to interfere with Xiao Haiqing's matters. They were afraid that they would be accused of taking bribes. Therefore, it became a habit for Xiao Haiqing's parents not to come. Some classmates also mentioned that it wasn't only in high school. Even Xiao Haiqing's junior high school was like this. When this classmate said this, a few people who didn't know the situation looked at Xiao Haiqing with sympathy. Jing Yunzhao heard it clearly. He didn't need to explain and pretended not to know anything. Hey! Do you guys think that Xiao Haiqing's parents will come to this parent-teacher conference? Someone said. Chapter 622. Like a stone stirring up 1,000 ripples, the students nearby also gathered over with interest. Several people gathered at the back near the door. Their voices were very low, and they were afraid of being discovered by Xiao Haiqing, so they all looked very cautious. I think no one will come. Ever since I met Xiao Haiqing, I've never seen her father. As for the woman this morning, she's her stepmother, not her biological daughter. How could she come? Besides, I heard that her family is in Serene City. I don't know if the sun came from the west today to send Xiao Haiqing to school. Oh right, weren't they going to transfer her to another school? I don't know why they stayed. What if they come? We're in our 3rd year of high school now. This year is very important. My mom bought the clothes today for fear of embarrassing herself. Of course your biological parents will think highly of you. Haven't you read fairy tales? A stepmother and an old witch are equals. It would be strange if they came. I don't believe it. Let's bet. If they come, you have to treat me to breakfast for a week. Let's bet. What's a week? Even a month is fine. Jing Yunzhao sat in the front, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch twice. They were indeed young and could make such a big deal out of such a small matter. Jing Yunzhao was opening a book when he seemed to hear someone looking at him from behind. The next second, someone said, "Hey. Do you think Teacher Li will come to the parent-teacher conference for Jing Yunzhao?" When this was said, everyone was stunned. Why? A classmate asked. Li Xiaoyun was the craziest male teacher in the entire school. almost all of the single female teachers had set their sights on him. There were countless coincidental encounters every day, but unfortunately, this teacher Lee was really not a kind person. Even if someone fell in front of him, he would definitely not give them a sideways glance. So far, no female teacher had been able to successfully have intimate contact with him. Not only the female teachers, but also the female students admired him. The students from other classes envied them the most because they could have the same PE class as the first class. Even if they were not his students, they could still look at them from afar. Of course, to the male students of Class 1, Lee Xiaoyun was no different from the devil, because every time after class, they would be half-dead tired. However, although Lee Xiaoyun was distant and strict, he took care of Jing Yunzhao. Not many people know about this. When I was sorting out the information for the director, I saw that Jing Yunzhao's guardian's name was written under teacher Lee's name. I even asked the director about it. Guess what he said in the end? They actually said that Li Xiaoyun and Jing Yunzhao are distant relatives. A classmate replied, "TSK, it must be fake. He doesn't even have parents, how can he have relatives?" Immediately, someone retorted. But that's what the director said. I find it strange too, but think about it carefully. Isn't teacher Li treating her differently? Wasn't there a female student from another class who said bad things about Jing Yunzhao behind her back? Not only was she severely reprimanded by him, but he also punished her to write a 1,000-word self-reflection letter 10 times. It's a little strange to say that. I remember that teacher Li usually doesn't talk much, but that day, he insulted that female student as if she was worthless. That student cried until her eyes were swollen, and the female teacher next to her didn't dare to persuade her. A few people were discussing in full swing, and they were a little carried away. At first, they knew to lower their voices, but gradually, it became louder and louder. Xiao Haiqing and the others could hear it clearly. Chapter 623. Jing Yunzhao rubbed her eyebrows and stared at Gong Jinchen. Have they handed in their homework? They seem to be quite free. Don't be like that. I also want to know. How did Li Xiaoyun become your guardian? Gong Jinchen laughed. Jing Yunzhao rolled her eyes. She was also quite curious about guardians. It was simply baffling. However, when she thought about how Li Xiaoyun taught someone a lesson for her, it was a bit funny. In fact, the other party's words weren't very fierce. At that time, she happened to pass by a girl holding a stack of books that accidentally fell to the ground. Although she was passing by, she happened to have something to do, so she didn't help and just walked over. Then, the girl complained about her. She didn't care, but she didn't expect the other party to extend the matter from her refusal to help to her upbringing. She said that students without parents were different. She had heard this kind of thing many times, so she endured it and left. However, not long after, she heard the class leader tell her that the girl was scolded. She looked from afar and saw Li Xiaoyun staring at the girl with a cold expression. He glanced at the girl from top to bottom and seemed to be saying something unpleasant. Soon, the girl started crying. She cried harder and harder until she was out of breath with tears and snot running down her face. Because she was very far away, her incredible hearing didn't work. However, it could be seen that Li Xiaoyun's tone wasn't fierce at that time. It even had a feeling of being slow and unhurried, but it was very vicious. It was simply merciless. The female teacher standing at the side was so frightened that she didn't dare to say anything. She couldn't deny that a trace of warmth flashed through her heart. It felt good to have someone stand up for her. Jing Yunzhao subconsciously pursed her lips and smiled. Her whole person looked a bit lighter. Gong Jinchen and the other two were still chatting. They were instantly attracted by her sudden smile. Yunzhao, Are you thinking about Teacher Li? Xiao Haiqing's eyes lit up and she put her arm around her shoulder. Jing Yunzhao instantly restrained her expression. No. You refuse to admit it. Xiao Haiqing rolled her eyes and said to Gan Jinchen and Suchu, the students behind are getting more and more unrestrained. They are betting on Jing Yunzhao and me. But it is quite interesting. Why don't the three of us have a bet and guess whether Teacher Li will appear? All right. Suchu answered loudly. But as soon as she finished speaking, she felt that she was too eye-catching. She immediately lowered her head and looked at Jing Yunzhao with a smile. However, my grandfather originally wanted to come over. If we bet on Teacher Li, what would he do? Isn't that perfect? Let's see if Grandpa Gan or Teacher Li wins, Xiao Haiqing said with a smile. After saying that, he directly took out money from his pocket. Give me all your pocket money. The loser can only freeload this month. You are so ruthless. The students behind are only betting on breakfast. Gan Jinchen's face was full of disapproval, but he still took out his money. I will bet on Grandpa. Then. I will also bet on Grandpa. Suchu thought and said. After all, Grandpa was an elder. When Teacher Li saw that someone stood up for Jing Yunzhao, he would definitely not appear, right? Xiao Haiqing pursed her lips and smiled. In that case, I will bet on Teacher Li. Since the three of them had placed their bets, Tang Zihua couldn't sit still. He quickly took out his money and placed it on Li Xiaoyun. It wasn't that he trusted this mysterious Teacher Li, but that he didn't want to bet on the same thing as Gan Jinchen. Chapter 624. Jing Yunzhao was completely speechless towards these people. Just as she was about to open her mouth, Gan Jinchen said, Yunzhao, for the sake of the competition's fairness, you can't deliberately show grandfather that you don't want him to appear these few days. You have to let nature take its course and you can't cheat. Jing Yunzhao's head was full of black lines. She sighed and took 100 yuan from Xiao Haiqing's hand. Since you're betting on me, then this one is mine. Just treat it as commission. She must be bored to death, that's why she didn't refuse these people's proposal. Several people were happy, they were incomparably satisfied with this result. Not long after, the room quieted down. The bell rang and the air seemed to have quieted down in an instant. That sound seemed to have a magical power that could penetrate people's hearts, calming them down. However, although this school was quiet and full of vitality, there was a person in a car outside with a sinister expression. This is the school. You've seen the photo. I don't want any accidents to happen. Jiaxi's face was pale as she said with a painful expression. Sitting in the back were two men in their 30s. Their bodies were muscular and they looked a bit powerful. Hearing this, they nodded firmly. Don't worry, it's just a little girl. We won't make a mistake. I advise you guys not to have this kind of thought. Jiaxi suddenly scolded them. Do you think I deliberately found you guys because I have a lot of money? Jing Yunzhao is a martial artist. More than 10 of our family's guards couldn't stop her. That's right, you guys take this. Jiaxi took out 2 boxes and opened them. They were actually 2 exquisite pistols. We don't need these things, right? The 2 men suddenly said. They always felt that this Miss He was insulting them. After all, the target was just a student. Even if she knew martial arts, how powerful could she be? It was fine if she repeatedly warned them, but she actually took out a gun. It's better to be prepared. But you guys remember, I only want to bring her back. You absolutely can't hurt her. Jiaxi said again. She spent a lot of effort to buy this gun from the black market. This place wasn't like other countries where the gun control wasn't strict. If it was discovered, it would be very troublesome. She actually wanted Jing Yunzhao to completely disappear from this world, but it was absolutely impossible now. She had to cure her and her mother's illness first. If it's possible, you guys better bring that Xiao Haiqing along. Jing Yunzhao's temper is fierce. If there's no one to threaten her with, I'm afraid she won't be so obedient, He Jiaxi added. As he spoke, he had a pained expression on his face. His hand kept hitting his leg, and after a while, he started massaging his arm. It was as if he couldn't sit still. It was extremely uncomfortable. She had a lot of painkillers, but the pains tattoos. She had taken a lot of painkillers but the effects as effects to her. The sides to the side. To her to take. The her of she was relatively better off. Her mother was in more pain. Every day, she would cry out in pain like a madwoman. Helpless, her father even had people lock her in the house. She understood in her heart that if she didn't care about it, her pain would definitely develop to the same level as her mother's. At that time, it would be completely over. Before that happened, she had to be cured. He Jiaxi's gaze was dense. Her appearance as she stared at the school's entrance was a bit scary. The two martial artists impatiently twisted their necks, making ka-ka sounds. Chapter 625. It was soon time for school to end, and the crowd flocked to the entrance. However, before leaving, Jing Yunzhao opened his phone and looked at the message. The corner of his mouth slightly hooked up. What's wrong? Xiao Haiqing felt that Jing Yunzhao's attitude wasn't right and immediately asked. He Jiaxi is at the school gate, Jing Yunzhao said. She had been hiding from He Jiaxi for so long. Now that she had the chance to find her, He Jiaxi naturally wouldn't let it go. However, she really didn't like the feeling of being schemed against behind her back. Therefore, before entering the school, she had already asked Hua Zhe to send a few people to watch the school gate and carefully check all the cars. The result was obvious. He Jiaxi simply couldn't stand it. Now, she was in a seemingly ordinary black MPV. Other than her, there seemed to be two other people. What the hell did you do to her? Why is she so impatient to bite you and not let you go? Xiao Haiqing also heard that He Jiaxi's phone calls were like a series of life-threatening calls. She didn't stop calling every day. Tang Zihua was almost annoyed to death by her. Actually, it's nothing. It's just that her body isn't very good. She's clearly asking me to treat her illness, but she's acting like an empress dowager. Do you think I'll lower my head and let her have her way? Jing Yunzhao smiled. Xiao Haiqing raised her eyebrows. Then what about now? You mean, I'll go out first? You guys wait first. I'm afraid He Jiaxi will be anxious and make a move on you guys because she brought two people with her. It's a bit unusual, Jing Yunzhao said. With He Jiaxi's temperament, if she wanted to use force, she wouldn't only bring two people. Since she did this now, it seemed that those two people were extraordinary. She had to be on guard. Okay, then we'll wait first. How about you take my car? No matter how bold He Jiaxi is, she won't make a move on me, Tang Zihua said. Prince is really different. Xiao Haiqing hooked her lips into a smile. Alright, it would be impolite to refuse. Jing Yunzhao, do you want to come along? Tang Zihua asked. There's no need for me. I've been hiding for today and tomorrow. It's time for me to collect some interest, Jing Yunzhao said with a smile. For some reason, Tang Zihua felt that Jing Yunzhao was a little scary. Jing Yunzhao was a vengeful person. The main reason why he was tormenting He Jiaxi like this was because of the fake parents and the fact that He Jiaxi schemed against Xiao Haiqing. However, the Tang family didn't intervene in these two matters. Instead, they promised Jing Yunzhao that if Jing Yunzhao wanted to deal with the He family in the future, the Tang family would absolutely not intervene. Now that Jing Yunzhao had said so, Tang Zihua couldn't continue to insist and left with Xiao Haiqing and the others. They appeared at the school gate and directly got into the Tang family's luxurious limousine. He Jiaxi kept staring at them with a sinister gaze. Isn't the Xiao Haiqing you mentioned the one who just got on the bus? What should he do now? Do you want to follow? The person beside her asked. No, Jing Yunzhao isn't in there. Moreover, that's the Tang family's car. If anything happens to Tang Zihua, even if Jing Yunzhao cured me, I still won't have a good life. He Jiaxi gnashed her teeth. Xiao Haiqing's luck is really good. She actually didn't go with Jing Yunzhao. Now that she had no other choice, she could only use force on Jing Yunzhao. She really couldn't care so much. Her body was constantly warning her that if she didn't treat it, she would go crazy. Her gaze was like a poisonous snake staring at the place. After about 20 minutes, the crowd at the school gate gradually became sparse. He Jiaxi's eyes were about to pop out. She finally discovered Jing Yunzhao's appearance. Chapter 626. Jing Yunzhao walked out of the school gates and glanced at the car. She then left as usual without batting an eyelid. I don't care, take a gun and force her to get in the car. He Jiaxi was extremely irritable. As soon as her voice fell, the two men impatiently got out of the car, put their hands in their pockets, and quickly walked toward Jing Yunzhao. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao also felt that something was wrong. He Jiaxi wasn't a fool. She hadn't left the crowd yet, so how could she be so impatient to make a move in the crowd? If a riot were to occur, even if she was the daughter of the He family, it would be useless. Now that the power of the media was so developed, if there was a problem in such an important place like the school gate, she would definitely have to explain it to the public. Since that was the case, why did she let the two men get out of the car? Could it be that she wanted to have a good talk with her? He Jiaxi wasn't that gentle. Jing Yunzhao's gaze swept over, her pupils shrank, and her brows slightly wrinkled. The two men hid their hands, and there seemed to be something protruding from their pockets. It was very obvious that they were hiding something. Guns. A thought flashed through Jing Yunzhao's mind. If that was the case, He Jiaxi's courage was really big. She actually wanted to force her to submit in front of so many people. It seemed that during this period of time, she had indeed been pressured quite a bit. The two men were getting closer, and Jing Yunzhao was already prepared to defend. However, at this moment, someone patted her shoulder. She turned her head to look and saw Li Xiaoyun looking over. It's not safe to go home alone, right? Li Xiaoyun smiled, hinting at something. The two men were stunned and subconsciously turned their heads to look inside the car. However, they couldn't see He Jiaxi's expression through the car window, so they lowered their heads and took out their phones to make a call. What should we do? Jing Yunzhao could hear one of the men ask. Pretending to be ignorant, Jing Yunzhao looked at Li Xiaoyun in front of her and said, "This road is indeed not safe, but since you already know, why did you still come over to say hello?" Am I saying hello to you? Oh, you might have misunderstood. I'm just doing my duty to protect you. That's what I should do, right? Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows and said. Jing Yunzhao pursed her lips and smiled. If you encounter a thug and get shot, don't blame me for implicating you. Thugs? Li Xiaoyun's voice was calm as he said, "It's fine. His skin is rough and his flesh is thick. Even a bullet can't penetrate it." While the two were talking, He Jiaxi also gritted her teeth and ordered, "Isn't it just a stinky man? If you have guns, why don't you bring them back together?" Without Xiao Haiqing, it was good to have another man. But seeing the two of them chatting so happily, they probably didn't know that something shocking was about to happen. The man hung up the phone and the two of them looked at each other before walking over together. After walking to Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun's side, he smiled and said, "Little classmate, my family's miss is waiting for you in the car. Are you willing to go?" "Oh right, you can bring your friends with you. Your young lady." Was he talking about? He Jussie. Could it be that her legs and feet are broken? Why didn't she come down personally to invite us? Jing Yunzhao said coldly. The other party's smile disappeared. "Stop talking nonsense. Are you going or not? If you refuse, don't blame us for using force." As he spoke, one of them stood behind Li Xiaoyun. He had already taken out a pistol and pointed it at Li Xiaoyun's back. Because the pistol was blocked, the people next to him didn't know what was going on. No one stopped to take a look or felt panic. Chapter 627. Li Xiaoyun pursed his lips and a dangerous glint flashed in his eyes. There weren't many people who dared to point a gun at him. Those who dared to do so were already dead. A gun also appeared in front of Jing Yunzhao. She glanced at it and looked at Li Xiaoyun. "You can't blame me for this." Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows. "What about now? Get in the car or..." It wasn't up to him to make a move or not. There were many students around. Jing Yunzhao glanced at them, shook her head, and walked toward the car. The two men were stunned for a moment. They didn't expect Jing Yunzhao to be so cooperative. However, after taking a few steps, they suddenly realized that something was wrong. Jing Yunzhao seemed to know who they were. There were so many cars parked in front of the school gate, but she actually went straight to Miss He's car. Did she see them long ago? Although they had some doubts, they were finally going to get her into the car. As for the rest, they didn't need to care too much. The two men followed Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun one after the other. They were completely relieved when they saw them get into the car. "Ha! Jing Yunzhao, do you think you can hide from me?" He Jiaxi coldly snorted, her face pale. Jing Yunzhao sneered. "Miss He, if I really wanted to hide, would you be able to find me? You just want me to treat your illness. Is there a need to spend so much effort to use a gun? You're really bold to do such illegal things." Jing Yunzhao. "You don't need to provoke me with words. Right now, it's up to me to treat your illness, not you. Those who have nothing to lose are not afraid of wearing shoes. You know very well what you did to my mother and me. If you don't treat me, then I'll make this man completely disabled. Do you believe me?" He Jiaxi's face was ferocious. Jing Yunzhao looked at her expressionlessly and took a deep breath. "If that's the case, then let's go." When He Jiaxi heard this, a trace of relief flashed across her face. She was really afraid that Jing Yunzhao would be like a stubborn donkey and wouldn't listen no matter what she said. What if she was determined not to treat her illness? It would be useless even if she crippled this man. Fortunately, Jing Yunzhao was obedient. However, she would never forgive Jing Yunzhao. As long as her illness was cured, she promised that she would make Jing Yunzhao's life worse than death. She might even send her to her death. The car drove away from the school gate. After circling around the county center, they slowly left. Jing Yunzhao turned her head and glanced at Li Xiaoyun, signaling him to get ready. However, just as she was about to make a move, Li Xiaoyun was already one step ahead of her. Almost instantaneously, he removed the gun from the person beside him and threw it out of the car window. The man roared, and in the next second, he immediately raised his hand to attack. Li Xiaoyun's expression was calm as he allowed the car to move. His hands instantly blocked the attack. His slender palm was like a sharp blade, and a gust of wind whistled through the air. The man's wrist went numb. He tried to raise his arm, but it was pinched by a force. His tendons and veins seemed to be pressed down. He couldn't move. In the blink of an eye, a black shadow flitted past. The man's palm hit the back of his head and he fainted. The sudden fight shocked everyone in the car, causing the tires to skid and the car to twist and turn. Jing Yunzhao wasn't idle either. Her speed was extremely fast, and when the other party let down their guard, she immediately snatched the gun. Her body bent forward, and with one hand, she grabbed He Jiaxi, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. The muzzle of the gun was instantly aimed at He Jiaxi's head. "Miss He, how about I send you to hell?" Jing Yunzhao's voice was cold as she deliberately tried to scare her. How can killing be suitable for a woman? Li Xiaoyun glanced at her. He pulled out another gun from his waist. Before He Jiaxi could speak, a bang was heard. Blood splattered everywhere. The car stopped instantly. Jing Yunzhao stared at Li Xiaoyun with her eyes wide open. Her eyes were full of shock. Chapter 628. Jing Yunzhao was dumbfounded. She stared at Li Xiaoyun, unable to react. The driver and the two men in the car were even more shocked and completely quieted down. The air was filled with a burnt smell. It was extremely unpleasant. Jing Yunzhao retracted her hand and stared at him. "Li Xiaoyun, you brought a gun." "It's necessary to be safe when I'm outside," Li Xiaoyun said softly. "You really killed her?" Jing Yunzhao asked again. Her hands were not clean. They were stained with other people's blood. Even those who harmed her all had tragic endings, but she had never been so direct. Well, although there was no difference, she still felt that the impact was too great. "Ah Zhao, you might not know the person in front of you very well." Li Xiaoyun sat up straight, wiped the gun in his hand, and stuffed it back into his clothes before saying, "I've investigated her. He Jiaxi, He Jili, and Han Qin's only daughter. She was spoiled since she was young and her goal was to become the future wife of your classmate, Tang Zihua. However, although she was Han Qin's only daughter, she had several half-sisters. 2 of them died. Do you know how they died? One died because she was addicted to drugs and overdosed. The other was even more direct. She and her mother planned a kidnapping and her sister was killed by the kidnappers. This doesn't include the fact that she and Han Qin found fake parents for you. You didn't give her a chance to do anything to you. Otherwise, she would have thought of ways to make you disappear from this world," Li Xiaoyun said again. After Li Xiaoyun finished speaking, he pulled Jing Yunzhao's hand over and wiped the blood on her hand. "But how do we deal with the body?" Jing Yunzhao was silent for a while before asking. Li Xiaoyun's lips curled and his eyes flashed. "The body? Ah Zhao, you can choose for yourself. You can find a place to bury her now, or you can leave her half dead." "What do you mean?" "No. Didn't you just shoot her and kill her?" "He's not dead." The corner of Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched as he turned to take a closer look. Her position was directly behind He Jiaxi. Just now, she had only stepped forward to clamp down on He Jiaxi, so she couldn't see the other party. Li Xiaoyun, on the other hand, was at an oblique angle, so when he opened fire, she subconsciously thought it was a headshot. But looking at it now, that wasn't the case at all. Because He Jiaxi's struggle just now gave Li Xiaoyun an opportunity, the bullet pierced through the side of her chest. Although it was true that blood was gushing out, there was still a heartbeat. "I just wanted to tell you that if you want to fight, I can help you," Li Xiaoyun added. Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. He was speechless. But now, Jing Yunzhao could be sure that Li Xiaoyun really had the intention to kill He Jiasi. He didn't even care about dealing with the aftermath. How are you going to explain this later? The bullet is still in her body. As long as the police do a comparison, they will know that the bullet in her body doesn't match He Jiasi's gun, Jing Yunzhao said. Don't worry about that. But if she goes to the hospital later, I'm afraid she will really be buried, Li Xiaoyun said. The driver trembled. Jing Yunzhao directly said, go back the way you came and take her to the hospital. As soon as his voice fell, the car instantly turned around. The other two people in the car looked at each other. One of them still had some numbness in his hand. Just drop us off on the way, Li Xiaoyun said. As Li Xiaoyun spoke, he glanced at the two people. A light snort came from his throat, and his eyes were full of contempt. Jing Yunzhao said, how are you going to pay for pointing a gun at us just now? Do you want me to cripple your hands and feet or accompany He Jiasi to the hospital to sleep for a while? Chapter 629. The two of them were martial artists. Although their martial arts weren't as good as hers and Li Xiaoyun's, they were still pretty good. Every move they made was quite lethal. If their hands and feet were crippled, it would be difficult for them to practice martial arts in the future. Miss Jing. We had eyes but failed to recognize empty tie. We hope you can be merciful. The two of them immediately said. Just now, when He Jiasi told them that Jing Yunzhao's ability was extraordinary, they didn't believe it. They didn't expect the other party's martial arts to be so high. Not only did he snatch the gun from their hands with his bare hands, but he also seemed to be proficient in acupuncture points and joints. Every attack was aimed at the weakest part of the body. They couldn't resist at all. If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have foolishly come here to die. They thought that the opponent was a little girl and would be easy to deal with. They didn't expect that they would be the ones at a disadvantage. Jing Yunzhao coldly snorted and remained unmoved. Be merciful. Just now, they didn't look like they wanted to be merciful. Miss Jing. The two of them were so anxious that they were sweating profusely. However, before they could finish speaking, Jing Yunzhao had already made his move. Caw-caw sounds could be heard. Suddenly, only the sound of the two of them holding their arms and shouting could be heard. Just a small punishment and a big warning, Jing Yunzhao said. After he finished speaking, the car stopped. Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun both got out of the car. This was the center of the county, so the two of them simply went to eat dinner. Although Jing Yunzhao only dislocated the other party's arms, there would be repercussions. In the future, if the two of them were to use too much strength or angle, their arms would be easily dislocated. For two people who practice martial arts, this was a fatal weakness. After Li Xiaoyun got out of the car, he made a phone call in front of Jing Yunzhao. When Jing Yunzhao heard the contents of the phone call, he knew that no one would pursue the matter of the fight just now. Although he sighed in relief, at the same time, he stared at Li Xiaoyun with an indescribable feeling. Sure enough, he was the young master of a wealthy family. How powerful must his background be to have the ability to shoot and injure someone, yet no one pursued the matter. However, Jing Yunzhao was also clear that in this world, there were many people like Li Xiaoyun who could stay out of this. The higher one's position, the more convenience they could enjoy. Otherwise, why would there be so many people desperately swimming upstream? Looking at Jing Yunzhao's thoughtful expression, Li Xiaoyun's lips curled into a smile. At this time, the driver hurriedly sent He Jiasi to the hospital. At the same time, he also called He Jiasi's parents to inform them. However, her mother, Han Qin, was not feeling well. Every day, she yelled and screamed and was locked up by He Jili. Moreover, He Jili was already somewhat impatient with his daughter. He had many children, so he didn't lack one. However, she was still a child that she had doted on for so many years. Although she felt depressed, she still rushed over in the middle of the night. Hijiasi's injury was extremely critical. If the gunshot wound was just a little bit more serious, then even a god would not be able to save her. However, when he saw his daughter and the 2 bodyguards she hired in such a sorry state, Hijiali's expression became extremely ugly. After he suppressed his anger and asked clearly about the situation, he glanced at his daughter who had just been rescued and said to his secretary, "Go and prepare a generous gift." "Mr. He." The secretary was puzzled. "Is it for Elder Tang?" "Miss, he was bullied like this." "Mr. He should be looking for Elder Tang for help, right?" Hijiali glanced at the secretary and said, "Choose something that little girls like. Don't worry about the price. Just put it on my account." When he said this, the secretary and others were stunned. A gift suitable for little girls. Does that mean this thing is for the female classmate who went against Miss He? Chapter 630. Hijiali's face was solemn. Seeing that his secretary was still suspicious, he frowned and scolded him, telling him to hurry up and do it. He had seen Jing Yunzhao once, and it was an unforgettable sight. At that time, his daughter had given the Xiao family's daughter to James, but Jing Yunzhao had ignored the police dogs and the He family's identity and barged in like a god of death. Not only was he violent, but he also gave people a feeling that they could not resist. Even though his He family wasn't as glorious as before, but a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Their days were still pretty good. Usually, no one would dare to yell at him or treat him violently. Thus, when Jing Yunzhao barged into the He family, he was both angry and angry. Naturally, he wanted to teach her a lesson, but before he could do anything, his wife and daughter had already started cursing Jing Yunzhao like crazy. His wife was the scariest. She didn't have any scars on her body, but she kept taking painkillers every day. Now, he had no choice but to lock her up. Looking at her crying and in pain every day, he felt fear for the first time. He had seen what Jing Yunzhao did to his wife with his own eyes. He had only used a silver needle to prick her a few times, but he did not expect the result to be like this. It reminded him of the rumors about Jing Yunzhao. Ning City was only so big, and many people had told him that Jing Yunzhao was a real miracle doctor. Although he did not believe it, there were many people who said it, so it could not be a groundless rumor. Therefore, he had kept silent during this time and did not find trouble with Jing Yunzhao. However, he could tolerate it, but his daughter could not. Originally, he wanted to stop Jing Yunzhao, but he was curious about Jing Yunzhao's abilities, so he decided to wait and see. He did not expect that Jing Yunzhao was more powerful than he had imagined. With countless medical skills, he was destined not to be an ordinary person. In addition, he had young Master Li by his side. He definitely could not provoke him. The secretary prepared a generous gift overnight. The next morning, Hijiali was already waiting at the school gate. When she saw Jing Yunzhao, she didn't say a word and walked over with her bags full of gifts. With a polite and flattering smile, she greeted, "Miss Jing." Jing Yunzhao stopped in his tracks. Hijiali was a dissolute person who didn't do his job properly. When he was young, he was a typical second-generation heir. That was why the He family became worse and worse in his hands. Although he was a middle-aged man, he looked somewhat sloppy. His body was extremely thin, his eyes were sunken, and his complexion was not normal. At a glance, it was obvious that he had overindulged. "What's the matter, Mr. He?" Jing Yunzhao's voice was slightly raised, and his aura was not weak. The other party laughed dryly. "My daughter frightened Miss Jing yesterday, so I'm here to apologize. I hope Miss Jing won't be angry." As he spoke, he took a few more glances at Jing Yunzhao. The number of women he had met wasn't small, and among them were quite a few young models. Each and every one of their faces were extremely outstanding, but none of them were like Jing Yunzhao. She was beautiful, but she didn't have the slightest bit of vulgarity or dust. Although she was young, she had a faint sense of steadiness. Her background wasn't good, but her body was wrapped in a layer of superior temperament. However, although he was lustful and dissolute, he was not so desperate that he was not picky. He did not want to be like his wife, who had to rely on painkillers every day as if she had a terminal illness for no reason. Jing Yunzhao glanced at the gifts he brought and smiled. "Mr. He, you are so generous. Miss He should still be in the hospital and should not be out of danger, right? You brought so many gifts. Aren't you afraid that Miss He will lose her temper when she wakes up?" Chapter 631. The morning sun was especially warm, shining on Jing Yunzhao's face, making her look even more gentle and beautiful. However, this trace of beauty, in He Jili's eyes, added a sense of alienation and coldness. He always felt that behind that smile, there was a hidden danger that made people tremble with fear. "Miss Jing, you must be joking. Yesterday was Cece's fault. When she wakes up, I'll definitely educate her properly. I definitely won't let her disturb Miss Jing again," He Jili hurriedly said. The girl in front of him wasn't an ordinary person. He absolutely couldn't treat her rudely like before. Jing Yunzhao pursed her lips and smiled. Although this He Jili was dissolute and lecherous, he was also very timid and lazy. At the same time, he didn't have any adventurous spirit. Therefore, ever since the He family fell into his hands, it had always been the same as it was at the beginning. He refused to innovate. What he wanted was to maintain a comfortable and prosperous life, not a higher career achievement. "Mr. He, did you only come for this matter?" Jing Yunzhao asked even though she already knew the answer. "Miss Jing." He Jili's expression was hesitant, but after thinking about it, he still said, "I heard that Miss He is a godly doctor, so I was wondering if I could ask Miss He to treat my wife's illness." "Of course, I'll pay the consultation fee." "Mr. He, that's why I said you're magnanimous. You clearly know that I don't get along with your wife and child, yet you still ask me to treat them. However, I'm afraid that Han Qin and He Jesse won't accept your kindness, right?" Jing Yunzhao said. "What do you mean?" He Jili really didn't understand. He always felt that Jing Yunzhao's words had a hidden meaning. "I heard that Mr. He has a lot of children. Is that right?" Jing Yunzhao continued. He Jili's expression was somewhat awkward. "Indeed, I have a total of 9 children. However, 2 of them died in an accident." 9 children. Jing Yunzhao couldn't help but be surprised. One must know that He Jili only had 1 wife. Moreover, He Jesse was an only child. In other words, the other 8 were illegitimate children. Fortunately, He Jili's family was wealthy. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to raise a child. However, such a child would certainly be very interesting when they fought over the family property in the future. With this thought in mind, Jing Yunzhao didn't have any hostility towards He Jili. After all, this man had never offended her from the beginning to the end. He had only married a woman with a poisonous heart and had given birth to a weirdo like He Jesse. So many children. Mr. He is quite amazing. Jing Yunzhao sighed and said, "But the 2 who died, I'm afraid it wasn't an accident, right?" He Jili was stunned. "Miss Jing. Mr. He, why don't you go and find out the real cause of death of your 2 dead children? You can come and look for me after you find out the truth. If you still insist that I treat Han Qin by then, that's fine too. Prepare enough money and I can spare her." Jing Yunzhao finished and turned to leave. But before he left, he said, "But the next time you come, don't bring gifts. I don't want to be gossiped about." There were so many classmates around who saw He Jili driving a luxury car and giving gifts. They would definitely be curious, right? Curiosity was the source of gossip. If there were any bad rumors, she would really want to cry but have no tears. Jing Yunzhao left confidently. He Jili stared at her back with a confused expression. His 2 dead daughters had other causes of death. Listening to her words, it was related to his wife. He Jili's expression suddenly became dignified. He quickly got in the car and ordered someone to investigate. Chapter 632. What Li Xiaoyun could find out, He Jili naturally could too. Even if he couldn't, as long as Li Xiaoyun helped him reveal some clues, He Jili would naturally be able to find the root of the problem. The reason why Han Qin and He Jiaxi dared to kill the 2 illegitimate daughters was definitely not as simple as they couldn't stand it. It was more likely that they were a threat to their positions. When the 2 daughters died one after another, He Jili didn't think too much about it. But now that he had the heart to investigate, sure enough, within a few days, the matter was clearly laid out in front of him. The one who died of drug addiction was his 3rd daughter. That child was the most well-behaved and the most beautiful when she was young. His 3rd daughter's mother was a very gentle, sensible, and weak woman, so he was quite fond of both mother and daughter. But when he found out that his daughter died of drug addiction, he was greatly disappointed because he really couldn't believe that the perfect daughter in his heart was actually addicted to drugs. Apart from being sad, he also felt that he was deceived, so he didn't even pay attention to his daughter's mother. But now that he investigated, he found out that his 3rd daughter didn't lie to him. The reason she got addicted to drugs was actually He Jiaxi's doing. He Jiaxi deliberately invited the children home to celebrate her birthday. At that time, she tricked his 3rd daughter into taking a lot of drugs. His 3rd daughter was simple and naive, so she didn't realize it. It was also because she took too much that she completely left this world. He Jili was suddenly shocked because in his heart, although this daughter of his, He Jiaxi, was a bit willful and arrogant, she wouldn't go so far as to kill her own sister. His daughter killed her, but it was under Han Qin's instructions. Even the drugs were obtained by Han Qin through her own channels. As for the reason, He Jili thought about it and recalled that during the period before his 3rd daughter died, he slept at his 3rd daughter's mother's place almost every night. Every time he went home, he was very dissatisfied with Han Qin, thinking that she wasn't gentle and sensible enough. At that time, he even thought that it would be great if he could marry a woman like his 3rd daughter's mother. He even bought a necklace that his wife had long taken a fancy to and gave it to that woman. He Jili's heart trembled as he continued to look at another stack of information. 4th daughter, her mother was a woman with an extremely strong personality. She had been tricked into bed by him. After giving birth, she had committed suicide. He felt very guilty, so he treated his 4th daughter very well. No matter what she wanted, he would satisfy her as a father. At that time, his daughter fell in love with Tang Zihua, and he was unhappy about it. He thought that Jia Si might not be able to marry into the Tang family in the future. Instead of letting Jia Si's mistake benefit someone else, he might as well let his 4th daughter cultivate a relationship with Tang Zihua. Therefore, he asked Jia Si to bring his 4th daughter along when she met Tang Zihua. Then, he was kidnapped. At that time, Jia Si had also been kidnapped. The kidnappers had demanded 300 million. At that time, he had called the police, but the strange thing was that they could not find the kidnappers at all. The kidnappers knew for no reason that they had called the police, so they did not contact them again and directly killed Jia Si. However, Jia Si survived. She said that her 4th daughter had helped her escape, so she was lucky enough to return home. Because her daughter had suffered a great shock at that time, even if there were some loopholes in her words, no one thought too much about it. After all, who would have thought that the mother and daughter had come up with the kidnapping themselves? Heejili was completely dumbfounded. Both of his daughters had died. He had thought that it was an accident, but he did not expect the truth to be so shocking. Heejili stared blankly at the information for a long time in silence. A few hours later, he walked with heavy footsteps toward his wife's house. Chapter 633. His wife, Han Qin, was lying on the bed with a pale face. It was obvious that the painkillers had taken effect and she could finally relax for a while. When the nanny who was taking care of her saw Heejili, she immediately left the room and closed the door. "Hubby, how's Cece?" Han Qin asked tiredly. "Pretty good." Heejili's face was gloomy. "That's good." Han Qin breathed a sigh of relief, but in the next second, her face flashed with a trace of malevolence. "Jing Yunzhao, that bitch, actually dared to be so heavy-handed on my daughter and almost killed Cece. I definitely won't let her off. Hubby, you still haven't found a doctor who can treat me. Seriously, you said they were all famous doctors, but I think they're all idiots." Hearing Han Qin's voice, Heejili felt goosebumps all over his body. This was the person who slept with him, but he didn't expect her to be so vicious. The reason why he liked to find women was because in his eyes, women were all made of water. They were soft and boneless, shy and charming, and extremely clean, unlike men who were vulgar and dirty. Although he knew that his wife had a bad temper and was jealous, he always thought that it was just a woman's temper, but he didn't expect that jealousy would be enough to make her kill. If it was someone else, it would be fine, but she killed Heejili's most precious child. "Why are you staring at me?" Han Qin asked again. "Staring at you? I even want to strangle you right now." Heejili gritted his teeth. When he said this, Han Qin was shocked. "Are you crazy? I'm already like this, and you're still not satisfied. It's fine if you can't find a good doctor, but why are you getting angry at me? I'm the one who's suffering now. I think you deserve it. If you didn't use her parents as an excuse, would Jing Yunzhao have dealt with you?" Heejili was so angry that he wanted to hit her. When he said this, Han Qin was about to go crazy. However, her hands and feet were fixed to the bed, so she could only speak. "I did this for our Cece. If it wasn't for Jing Yunzhao and that bitch called Xiao Hongye, would our Cece be despised by the Tang family? What's wrong with me taking revenge on her? What did I do wrong? Besides, didn't I just find a pair of fake parents? For an orphan like her, it's already a blessing to have parents. How unreasonable. Han Qin, just you wait and see, your retribution is coming." Heejili pointed at Han Qin and angrily turned around to leave. Treat her illness. Unless he was an idiot. It was true that he had let her down by having affairs with other women, but from the first day they met, Han Qin knew what kind of person he was. He even said himself that it was his interest and he would never change it. She still insisted on marrying him even after knowing his habits. What right did she have to complain about the heavens and accuse others? What right did she have to do something to his daughters? Cece's life was a life, and his other children were worthless weeds. In Han Qin's eyes, Heejili's reaction was somewhat unreasonable. She was crying and scolding at the top of her voice, without any of the elegance of a noble lady. In a fit of anger, Heejili directly threw all the painkillers in the house into the trash can. But when he thought of his daughter, Heejasi, he felt as if he had swallowed a fly, feeling disgusted and uncomfortable. Her personality was just like her mother's. In the ward, Heejasi had already regained consciousness, but every time she thought of the moment when she was shot, she would tremble incessantly. "Dad, Dad, help me. Can you go find Jing Yunzhao? I really feel terrible, my body hurts." When she saw He Jiasi immediately cried and purposely pulled on her wound to make her father's heart soften. Chapter 634. A trace of blood seeped out of the wound. The nurse on the side hurriedly stepped forward to comfort her, fearing that her injury would worsen. If it was in the past, seeing such a lonely and helpless daughter, his impatience would definitely disappear without a trace. Then, whether it was spending money or finding someone, he would coax her. But now, all he saw was hypocrisy. A child who was extremely hypocritical in front of her own father. How terrifying was she? She was still so young, yet she was so good at acting and deceiving people. She was even younger when she caused the deaths of her two younger sisters. How could such a young person have a sinister and vicious nature that even adults can't compare to? Things like genes were indeed extremely terrifying. She really inherited all of Han Qin's ruthlessness. "Dad." Seeing her father's expressionless look as he scrutinized her, He Jiasi suddenly panicked. "Starting today, you'll move to a normal ward." He Jili opened his mouth and continued, "I've already sold all of your clothes, shoes, and bags. Once you're discharged from the hospital, someone will take you to a new residence. From now on, you're not allowed to take a single step into the He family's house. Otherwise, I'll break your legs. As for the school, I've already applied for you to drop out. The secretary will tell you the details later." He Jili wasn't willing to say another word to his daughter, so he directly left. He Jiasi was immediately dumbfounded and hurriedly shouted, "Dad! Dad, what are you saying? Are you muddle-headed? Miss He, I'll have to trouble you to be quiet." The secretary immediately opened his mouth to stop her and said, "Mr. He's meaning is very simple. That is, from today onwards, you're considered to be kicked out of the house. Mr. He has also made it clear to the public that you won't be able to inherit a single cent of his property. Once you're discharged from the hospital, everything you can take with you is in this box. Later, I'll help you count them one by one." "What nonsense are you talking about?" He Jiasi's eyes widened. This time, she really didn't care about the injuries on her body. She opened her mouth and cursed, "Is my dad crazy? Why would he kick me out of the house? I don't believe it. Go and call him back right now." "I'm sorry, Miss He. Mr. He said that he'll never see you again. Even if you starve to death outside, he won't care. As for the grudges between you and Miss Jing, forgive me for being blunt, but from today onwards, Miss Jing can deal with others and fight with them. That's all because you're from the He family. But from today onwards, you're no longer." But there was a bit more ridicule in her tone. As the real Miss He Jiasi was usually unavoidably arrogant and despotic. This secretary could only endure it in the past, but now, she could finally vent her resentment. He Jiasi, however, didn't believe her. She began to point at the secretary, quarreling and scolding her. Not long after, her wound opened up and she made another ruckus. He Jili was an extremely fickle person, but he was also a bit of a male chauvinist. He always treated his women with incomparable leniency and was very opinionated when it came to women. That's why Han Qin could sit firmly in the position of Mrs. He for so many years. Han Qin didn't have much status or background. When she was young, she completely relied on her outstanding face to win the position of Mrs. He. It was just that she could hold on to this position in the past, but now, she naturally couldn't. He Jili was extremely fast. He directly went through the divorce procedures with her. Of course, Han Qin wasn't happy, but He Jili had evidence of the mother and daughter's murder, so Han Qin could only admit defeat. On the day of the parent-teacher conference, He Jili once again appeared in front of Jing Yunzhao. But this time, he came to tell Jing Yunzhao about Han Qin and her mother's situation. It could be said that he stayed out of the matter. Chapter 635. Everything was within Jing Yunzhao's expectations. It would be strange if He Jili could forgive Han Qin and He Jiaxi for killing his two daughters. Mr. He, I believe you have the phone numbers of your ex-father-in-law, mother-in-law, and brother-in-law, right? Jing Yunzhao asked He Jili. He Jili nodded. Even though he didn't know what Jing Yunzhao wanted to do, he still cooperated and wrote down his phone number and address. The houses that the Han family used to live in were all under my name. Now, I've already taken back all the houses and moved them all to a small broken courtyard in the city. He Jili was full of anger when he thought of the Han family. He really spent money to raise a bunch of vermin. In the past, for the sake of his wife, he was very good to the Han family. Not only did he give them cars and houses, he even arranged for the Han family's children's school. Now that he and Han Qin were divorced, he naturally wanted to take back everything that he had given her. That's good. Jing Yunzhao smiled and took the address and phone number. Han Qin and He Jiaxi used her parents' name to humiliate her. Now, she wanted to let them feel what it was like to be schemed against by their own family. How could people not feel resentment when they suddenly fell from a high pedestal after staying for a long time? Even if Han Qin's parents blamed her, what about her brother and sister-in-law? They would live under the same roof in the future. Their good days would be long. Jing Yunzhao's smile made He Jili's heart tremble. After he called her, he quickly left. He really didn't want to stay with this little girl at all. Jing Yunzhao looked at the back of the car as it left, and the corner of her mouth hooked up into a smile. The He family was just like this. She didn't do anything to He Jili not because she forgave his connivance and acquiescence, but because she knew she didn't need to do anything. He Jili's body had obviously lit up a red light. At most, in 10 years, he would definitely be sick. Those who indulged too much would age faster than ordinary people. At that time, his women and children wouldn't be idle. They would line up one by one to scheme against him. How reliable could a relationship built with money be? Jing Yunzhao turned around and walked into the campus with a smile. Early in the morning, the campus was extremely lively. The students had arrived an hour earlier, and the parents had also walked in with solemn expressions. Some people looked serious while some looked proud. Those who knew each other exchanged pleasantries while those who didn't know each other nodded and smiled. In the class, the students sat upright and still, each of them extremely nervous. However, the teachers revealed amiable smiles as they watched the parents of the students walk into the classroom one by one. She's not here yet. Look, I'm going to win. Behind her, a classmate stared at the empty seat next to Xiao Haiqing and whispered. However, just as he finished speaking, a young woman walked in. Teacher Qi was stunned. She's so young. She can't be the student's mother, right? Could it be his elder sister? Hello, teacher. I'm Xiao Haiqing's auntie. Jiang Rong looked uneasy. Teacher Qi looked surprised. Then please take a seat. Jiang Rong's body emitted a strong smell of cosmetics. Her face was covered in a thick layer of powder, but some bruises could still be seen. She was probably beaten up at home by Xiao Daoan again. However, when Jiang Rong appeared, the class quieted down. Everyone stared at this legendary stepmother. Hi, Qing. I'm late. I'm sorry. Jiang Rong trembled with fear. Xiao Haiqing glanced at her. Auntie Jiang, why are you so polite to me? In the past, you were either busy or your son wasn't feeling well. It's rare for you to squeeze out some time. I can't thank you enough. Chapter 636. Xiao Haiqing smiled gently, but Jiang Rong was shocked, her body trembling slightly. The reason why she was late today was because Ning City and Huaning County were separated by a few hours of driving. She had already set off before dawn. However, because she had woken up too early, she had provoked Xiao Daoan's temper and was beaten up by him. So, sorry. Jiang Rong quickly said. Xiao Haiqing's face turned cold. Auntie Jiang, are you trying to make up for the past few years of apologies all at once? Jiang Rong immediately fell silent. In the past, she had never been afraid of Xiao Haiqing, but now, she was scared to the bone. She was always very sensible and obedient in front of Xiao Daoan. She didn't make a fuss, but one sentence from him could make her life difficult. Recently, she had been beaten up by Xiao Daoan too many times, and she had thoughts of divorce. However, Xiao Haiqing had used some unknown method to get her private parts from James. If word got out, she could only die. Jiang Rong sat restlessly by Xiao Haiqing's side, which made others feel a little strange. Even Suchu had a face of confusion, not knowing what was going on. Cousin, this bad woman won't say bad things about Haiqing in front of the students, right? I really don't understand why Xiao Haiqing asked Jiang Rong to come. What if she causes trouble? Suchu was a little worried. You're a well-fed person who doesn't know the suffering of the hungry. Jing Yunzhao smiled and said. She was probably the only one here who could understand Xiao Haiqing. In this kind of situation, everyone had their parents by their side. Even if their parents weren't there, there would be an elder by their side. However, she and Xiao Haiqing had always been the same person. It was fine if they had to accept the strange looks of their classmates, but they also had to receive the attention of their parents. During the week before and after the parent-teacher conference, they had to endure this kind of gaze. Sympathy was the most hurtful. It would remind you again and again that you were pitiful, helpless, and lowly. The reason why she didn't care now was because she had grown up from this age. However, at this time in her previous life, she also felt embarrassed. Having someone come was better than having no one by his side. Moreover, what Jiang Rong was doing now was something she hated the most in the past, but she could only do it again and again to fulfill her responsibilities. That feeling was the most torturous for her. Before long, the house was filled with people. Suchu and Gon Jinchen frowned as they stared outside. That's strange. Why isn't Grandpa here yet? Didn't we agree on this? He mumbled again. Your grandfather. He won't be coming today. Suchu's mother rubbed her daughter's head and said, a teacher called him and said that someone would attend the parent-teacher conference. As soon as he said this, the few of them were stunned. It can't be the teacher with the surname Li, right? Suchu asked in astonishment. Just as she was about to ask, a valiant figure appeared at the door. Li Xiaoyun walked in. When he passed by Teacher Qi, he smiled. I'm here to look for our Zhao. Teacher Qi, can you praise her more later? Teacher Qi's old face twitched violently. Jing Yunzhao always ranks first in the grade. She's a good child, Teacher Qi said reluctantly. Of course, he had to praise her, but there was no need for this brat with the surname Li to say it, right? Ever since this guy came to school as a teacher, it was really a foul atmosphere. Every day, there would be young girls asking him about Teacher Li. How would he know? That's right. Our Zhao is not only good-looking, but also has a high IQ. Teacher Qi, you're really lucky to have met such an outstanding student. As he spoke, he walked toward Jing Yunzhao under everyone's speechless gazes. Chapter 637. Teacher Chi's old face stiffened a little, as if it was his first time meeting Li Xiaoyun. Usually, he had never seen him boast so much. Usually, when he spoke, he had a look of contempt for everything. His aura had always been incomparable, but now, he actually looked a little gentler. Li Xiaoyun's appearance was outstanding. Everyone looked at him a few more times without sleep. They only saw him walk to Jing Yunzhao's side and sit down with a calm expression. He really looked like Jing Yunzhao's elder. However, when Li Xiaoyun saw Su Chu and Gan Jinchen, their expressions turned bitter. They had given away a month's worth of pocket money. In the future, the two of them could only freeload. It was too pitiful. "Little brother, are you Jing Yunzhao's big brother or?" Someone behind looked at Li Xiaoyun's back and asked. Jing Yunzhao's grades were so good. As parents, they naturally wanted to know her learning methods. However, they had never seen her parents come before. Sometimes, Jing Yunzhao was like a taciturn gourd. They couldn't get anything out of her. Now, it was different. It was rare that there was someone who could speak on behalf of Jing Yunzhao. Li Xiaoyun leaned to the side and took the cigarette from the other party. He said, "For now, I'm her big brother." For now. The other party was taken aback and smiled. Classmate Jing Yunzhao is really lucky to have such a handsome brother like you. But can I ask, what kind of books does your sister usually read? What's her daily schedule? The uncle behind him asked again. Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows and glanced at Jing Yunzhao. Then, he looked at the boy beside the uncle who spoke and said, "Our Zhao reads all kinds of books. She has a photographic memory and is born smart." What he meant was that they wouldn't be able to learn it even if they asked. Li Xiaoyun's mouth curled up. After saying that, the uncle's face stiffened and he laughed dryly. The boy beside him tugged at the corner of his father's clothes and whispered, "Dad, don't ask. This is our class PE teacher." The teacher that all the boys in the class were most afraid of was this Li Xiaoyun in front of them. Every time it was physical education class, he would torture them. Moreover, he was famous for being a smiling tiger. He looked like a gentleman, but in fact, he was a pervert. "Oh. So you're a physical education teacher. What's your name?" The father's eyes lit up as he quickly asked. "Li, Mr. Li, nice to meet you." The father said politely and glared at his son before saying, "I heard that all the other classes have cancelled their PE classes except for the first class. Isn't that not very good?" "Actually, I don't mean anything else. It's mainly because we're in our third year of high school. We should focus on our studies. Physical education shouldn't be that important." As soon as he said that, his son beside him rolled his eyes. He carefully glanced at Li Xiaoyun and quickly lowered his head. When the uncles and aunties nearby heard this, they all gathered around. "I think it's time to cancel it. Aren't all the students in this class elites? Since they're elites, we shouldn't waste time on this kind of thing. Don't you think so? Mr. Li, don't you think it's better to give this PE class to others in the future?" Previously, when my son came back, he complained that the PE class was too tiring. The surrounding voices almost buried Li Xiaoyun. Jing Yunzhao lowered his head and couldn't help but chuckle. He seemed to be taking pleasure in Li Xiaoyun's misfortune. Who asked him to walk over in such a high-profile manner? Chapter 638. The parents' voices grew louder and louder. Soon, almost everyone in the class was discussing the physical education class. Even Teacher Chi was blocked by everyone's words. He looked embarrassed and helpless. Every year at this time, the parents would be like wolves and tigers. They couldn't wait for their children to work hard 24 hours a day. "Teacher Chi, say something. When will our physical education class be cancelled?" We can't joke about our children's future, right? A parent immediately said. The corner of Teacher Chi's mouth twitched. There were only 2 physical education classes a week. How could it be related to their future? This is the school's decision. Teacher Chi said hesitantly. Then why are the other classes different from class 1? Someone asked again. At this moment, Li Xiaoyun snorted. Students who don't want to attend physical education class can come and have a chat with me. Do you? With a simple sentence, the room instantly fell silent. Mom, stop talking. If they continued, wouldn't they be even more miserable in class in the future? Although physical education class was tiring, it was also very interesting. Teacher Li had also taught them many self-defense skills, which were very practical. What do you mean stop talking about? This matter concerns their studies. There's no room for discussion. Do you think I don't know what physical education class is for? If you have the time to play, you might as well read more books, a loud voice immediately said. This shout immediately caused the atmosphere in the room to turn serious. All of them lost their previous politeness and began to protect their children. Li Xiaoyun pulled Jing Yunzhao to her feet and walked to the front. He said, "It seems like everyone cares about their children's future. That's why you're willing to sacrifice their health." What do you mean by that? A parent asked. The children in class 1 have better grades, right? Li Xiaoyun asked with a faint smile. That's right, the person below replied. There was a hint of pride in his tone. Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows and continued, Our Zhao knows some medical skills. Why don't we let her speak? With that said, he looked over with a smile. Jing Yunzhao's eyelids twitched. She was even more speechless when she saw the puzzled looks on everyone's faces. However, even though Li Xiaoyun had deliberately dragged her into the water, she still agreed with the theme that he wanted to express. Students, most of your good grades come from reading books without eating or sleeping. However, it's not good for your body if your nerves are tense or your eyes can't relax. Young Master Li. Teacher Li will teach you some self-defense skills in class. It's good for your safety and also allows you to exercise your muscles and bones. It's good for your health, Jing Yunzhao said. Everyone was stunned. The auntie with the louder voice spoke again, Jing Yunzhao, we all know this. It's just a year. After this year, the children can relax however they want. Jing Yunzhao frowned and disagreed. 1 year. It didn't seem like a long time, but at this rate, let alone a year, even a few months wouldn't be enough. A second ago, Jing Yunzhao was still somewhat polite. Now that she heard the auntie's words, she immediately became aggressive and walked over. She glanced at the auntie's son and reached out to grab his wrist to check his pulse. After a while, she snorted and said, Auntie, your son's face is pale and there are dark circles under his eyes. It's obvious that he hasn't had a good rest recently. He probably goes to bed after midnight every night, right? Today is the parent-teacher conference. Look at his nervous face and cold sweat. He's obviously afraid that you'll be dissatisfied with him. It's fine if he's in this mood for a day or 2, but in the long run, it'll be serious. Chapter 639. Without waiting for the auntie to speak, Jing Yunzhao continued, his initial symptoms are anxiety. But if you continue to push him, he will suffer from insomnia, depression, and mental strength. If he's lucky, he might be able to make it through. But if he's unlucky, he might suffer from depression or even schizophrenia. Auntie, have you ever heard of overwork? Long-term overwork can lead to sudden death due to heart failure, lung failure, kidney failure, myocardial infarction, and cerebral hemorrhage. It sounds scary. Of course. In fact, I don't know much about the term death from overwork, but I just took a look at your son. His body is currently lacking in qi, blood, and yin, and his internal organs are somewhat dysfunctional. As the saying goes, accumulation of deficiency leads to injury, and accumulation of injury leads to overwork. You don't want your son to age prematurely, right? When Jing Yunzhao finished her series of words, everyone was stunned. The auntie's face stiffened. What are you talking about? Why did he suddenly die and age prematurely? I'm sorry, I might have been too harsh, but auntie, I can't agree with what you said. Instead of paying attention to his results, you should pay attention to his body first. For TCM, overwork will hurt one's qi. Although this kind of injury can't be seen on the surface, there are some signs. For example, your son has serious eye circles, so he must be staying up late often. So even if I don't take a look, I can tell that his tongue is thick and greasy, which proves that he has dampness and heat in his body. Furthermore, his spleen is damaged, so his appetite should be poor. The auntie's face turned ugly. Her son would go to bed after midnight every night and wake up at 5 in the morning, even during the summer vacation. As for his appetite, her son didn't like to eat. No matter how good the food was, he would only take a few bites before losing interest. She even thought that her son was picky. According to Jing Yunzhao, her son was sick. She immediately shook her head at the thought. How could she believe the words of a young girl? She was her son's classmate, so she definitely knew her son well. Jing Yunzhao, I admit that my son doesn't have a good appetite, but he has been picky about food since he was young. It's not as serious as you say, the aunt said again. She knew that Jing Yunzhao had a pitiful background. She had also heard from her son that she was very smart and a good person. Usually, when the other students in the class asked her for advice, she would answer all their questions. Jing Yunzhao sighed inwardly and said, "Since you don't believe my words, why don't you let me take your pulse?" The atmosphere in the room was strange. Everyone was a little confused. They didn't know how a good parent-teacher conference turned into a medical club. However, the auntie was angered by her words. She stretched out her hand and said, "Go ahead. I want to see what you have to say. Your body is full of yin deficiency fire. Do you usually feel thirsty and irritated?" Jing Yunzhao asked slowly. "This is correct." The auntie nodded. "It's not wrong to have a lot of dreams at night, right?" Jing Yunzhao asked again. The auntie thought for a moment and nodded again. "Heart palpitations, urine short red." Jing Yunzhao's lips curled up as she retracted her hand and added. The auntie blushed and was a little embarrassed. However, she heard Jing Yunzhao say, "You usually like to eat warm fruits, such as durian and mango. You also like to cook with spices like star anise, pepper, and cinnamon. Also, you like to eat greasy food, so eat more at dinner." After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, she quietly looked at her with a hint of a smile on her face. Chapter 640. Everyone stared at the auntie after she said that. Another woman beside her quickly tugged at her arm. That Jing Yunzhao couldn't have been right, right? If he wasn't right, why would she have such an expression? He was shocked and embarrassed, and his face was full of uneasiness. "Did my son tell you?" the auntie said. Jing Yunzhao laughed lightly. "Whether it was him or not, you can ask the other students in class, because everyone knows that I don't like to talk about private matters. Usually, when we chat, it's mostly about complicated topics. It's impossible for them to be so bored as to pry into your private life." "Mom, I really didn't say that. I haven't talked to Jing Yunzhao since school started," the male student said embarrassedly. "Then why did you?" The auntie was puzzled. After a while, she said awkwardly, "You really know medicine. So what you said about my son was all true?" "Of course it's true. I won't joke about other people's health. Your son's symptoms aren't serious. He'll be fine as long as he rests more and exercises more to relax his mind," Jing Yunzhao said. As for the auntie's health, it wasn't very serious either. Most people had some preferences, but if they ate too much of their preferences, it would definitely affect their body's balance. This auntie had taken in a little too much nutrients and had a bad temper. As long as she controlled all the things she liked to eat and ate less at night and more mixed grains and vegetables, her bad temper would slowly dissipate. The auntie heaved a sigh of relief. But when she looked at Jing Yunzhao again, her expression changed. After a few seconds, she said, "Actually, it's only 2 PE classes a week. It doesn't affect him that much. What could be more important than her son's health?" Previously, she didn't know that her son's poor appetite was related to his studies. Now that she saw her son's thin body, how could she not feel distressed? Jing Yunzhao pursed her lips, revealing a hint of a smile. She walked back while giving Li Xiaoyun a fierce glare. The others were also a little restless. They couldn't help but wonder if their children were in the same situation. But when they thought about it, there were actually many children with the same symptoms. This was not surprising. There were more than 1,000 people in the school, and the top 50 students were all in this class. The intelligence of the students here was indeed higher, but more of them had stronger self-control. They would study hard every day. There were gains and losses. If they wanted to know more than others, they naturally had to spend more time. These parents naturally hoped that their children could have a good future. However, compared to their future, they naturally paid more attention to their health. For a moment, they were somewhat nervous. They didn't want to believe Jing Yunzhao's words, but they couldn't doubt her words at all. "Teacher Li, are you satisfied?" Jing Yunzhao said angrily. Li Xiaoyun suddenly reached out and rubbed her head. "Ah, Zhao, when you speak so confidently, your body seems to be shining." He did it on purpose, but he also knew that she had the ability to convince people. Every time medical skills were involved, the confidence and radiance on her face could not be concealed. She was no longer as cold as usual. Instead, she exuded an amiable temperament from head to toe. There was a smile at the corner of her mouth, and her gaze was firm and gentle. The tone of every word she spoke was completely different from usual. Seeing her like this, he even forgot his own identity and wished that he could become her patient. To him, she was simply charming. Chapter 641. Jing Yunzhao struggled and pushed Li Xiaoyun's hand away, only to see him staring at her gently. There seemed to be a hint of worship. "Li Xiaoyun, are you all right?" Jing Yunzhao was speechless. "Ah, Zhao, I think I..." Li Xiaoyun paused halfway and swallowed the rest of his words. There were some things he could not say now. This was the first time he realized that time passed so slowly. Jing Yunzhao was still a high school student. It was suffocating. "What?" Jing Yunzhao looked up. Li Xiaoyun smiled. "Nothing. I just think you're so amazing. Can the boys in this class stand it? If you fall in love early, I'll be angry." Not only would he be angry, but if any pig dared to take his cabbage, he would definitely slaughter it. "Li Xiaoyun, your image in my heart has already collapsed," Jing Yunzhao choked out. She even suspected that the Li Xiaoyun in front of her and the Li Xiaoyun in front of her were not the same person. Perhaps they were twin brothers. You'll find that it collapses even more in the future. Li Xiaoyun laughed and his voice came faintly. The big bad wolf in his body had been holding back for a long time. He really wanted to swallow this girl right now. The two of them spoke very softly, but the room was noisy. They went from discussing the physical education class to discussing when the children went to bed. In the end, almost all of them realized that their children did not have more than 7 hours of rest. On average, they only had 5 or 6 hours of rest. This kind of time was almost unbearable for adults. It would have been fine if it was just a few days, but ever since school started, or even since the last school year, it had not changed. It was no wonder that the children were all listless. They were all like wilted flower buds. With so many discussions, guilt came quickly. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the class seemed to have changed. There were even a few aunties who were so distressed that they were about to cry. Not only was Teacher Chi shocked, but even the other students couldn't react in time. Were these still the parents who wanted them to study 24/7? Didn't they come to school to talk about results? Why did they suddenly, "Ah Zhao, sorry, Ah Zhao is my name," Li Xiaoyun retorted. The other party was stunned for a moment before he changed the subject and said, Yun Zhao. Can you take a look at my daughter? How is her health? She doesn't have a good appetite either. Oh right, her stomach hurts. Jing Yun Zhao glanced at the female classmate. Naturally, he recognized her. He said, I know her. Her stomachache is probably caused by eating too quickly. The food that isn't chewed properly causes a burden on the digestive system, so it's easy to have stomachache. I see. The auntie sighed and glared at her child. You child, why are you in such a hurry? You're not allowed to eat lunch in the cafeteria anymore. Let's go home. Mom will cook for you. The girl stuck out her tongue and grinned at Jing Yun Zhao. The next second, she was pulled back. However, just as one person left, the other students' parents also walked over. Some of them still didn't quite believe it, so they purposely tested Jing Yun Zhao. They found that Jing Yun Zhao had absolutely nothing to be suspicious of, so their attitude towards her became better and better. Teacher Li, you're really lucky. Jing Yun Zhao is so capable at such a young age. People kept wandering in front of Jing Yun Zhao. It was unknown who suddenly said this. When Xiao Haiqing and the others beside Jing Yun Zhao heard this, they could not help but laugh out loud. Chapter 642. If they remembered correctly, when Li Xiaoyun first entered the door, there were people who were envious of Jing Yun Zhao for having such a handsome brother. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, things would change? Yun Zhao, I really admire you. We both studied medicine, how could I be so stupid? Gong Jinchen was completely convinced. Do you want me to praise you to comfort you? You know I'm not that kind of person. Jing Yun Zhao looked at him and said. Gong Jinchen's mouth twitched. Su Chu and Gong Jinchen's parents couldn't help but praise Jing Yun Zhao. They naturally knew medicine, but they didn't think too much about it just now. Jiang Rong's expression had completely changed, and the shock in her eyes was self-evident. Jing Yun Zhao had saved her son before, but at that time, she thought that it was just common knowledge in first aid. She only thought that Jing Yun Zhao's reaction was fast and her courage was big, but she didn't think that Jing Yun Zhao actually had the ability to save him. Moreover, the way she talked about those illnesses just now was indeed very attractive, making people subconsciously listen. Although there were some things that they couldn't understand at all, they inexplicably felt that it was very reasonable. That influence was extremely strong, and it could even change the minds of so many people in such a short time. No wonder Xiao Haiqing changed so much. There must be someone around her who could influence her. Recently, she had been dreaming often. In her dreams, Xiao Haiqing couldn't fight her at all and was firmly held in her hands, but when she woke up, it was all for nothing. Thinking about the suffering she had suffered recently, Jiang Rong's face turned pale and she felt uncomfortable. Xiao Haiqing felt it and smiled gently. Auntie Jiang, you don't seem to be feeling well. Since that's the case, let Yun Zhao take a look for you. After saying that, she grabbed her wrist and pressed it on the table in front of Jing Yun Zhao. Jiang Rong was in pain, but she tried her best to endure it. A 5-fingered red mark appeared on her wrist, and it was a shocking sight. Jing Yun Zhao did not refuse and raised his hand to take her pulse. But when he touched her wrist, a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. He glanced at Jiang Rong and whispered in Xiao Haiqing's ear, Jiang Rong is pregnant. Xiao Haiqing raised her eyebrows. Pregnant? How long? Xiao Haiqing asked. About a month ago. His pulse is still very light, Jing Yunzhao said. Xiao Haiqing was stunned for a while, but then she smiled. Almost a month. Since that was the case, it was hard to say who it belonged to. She was pregnant at almost the same time as she had sex with James. Maybe she could have given birth to someone else's child. Xiao Haiqing turned her head and stared at Jiang Rong with a smile. Jiang Rong felt a chill run down her spine. Haiqing, what's wrong? Jiang Rong looked like a frightened little wife. Nothing. I'm just surprised that Auntie Jiang's body is so healthy, Xiao Haiqing said with a smile. This child could be father's, or it could be James. But if father knew, he would definitely ask Jiang Rong to abort the child. But whether to keep the child or not, she still needed to consider carefully. She already had a younger brother, so it didn't matter if she had another one. But if it wasn't her younger brother or sister, Jiang Rong's life would be even worse. Unfortunately, she longed for her miserable days to come. Yun Zhao, can you give me some pregnancy medicine later? Xiao Haiqing said with a smile. Jing Yun Zhao nodded. Xiao Haiqing said to Jiang Rong, Auntie Jiang, I'll tell father that from today onwards, you don't have to come back to Ning City. I'm already in my 3rd year of high school and need someone to take care of me. What do you think? Chapter 643. Hearing Xiao Haiqing's words, Jiang Rong's face stiffened, but she immediately nodded, okay. If she didn't return to Ning City, it meant that Xiao Daoan wouldn't touch her during this period of time. When she was in Ning City, although she wanted to go back to her parents' home, every time she went back, Xiao Daoan would immediately invite her back. Her parents couldn't keep her for long, and once she was brought back by her husband, she would definitely be taught a lesson. Although Xiao Haiqing's attitude was strange now, at least Xiao Haiqing wouldn't take the initiative to make a move on her. Jiang Rong was surprised and happy. Xiao Haiqing looked at her expression, and a trace of a contemptuous smile appeared in her eyes. At this time, the atmosphere in the class slowly became more amiable. Teacher Qi sorted out the results of the class and the situation with the parents, and the parent-teacher conference proceeded smoothly. The attitude of the students in the class towards Jing Yun Zhao became better and better, especially those students who were originally under a lot of pressure. Their parents had more or less changed, causing them to be able to relax a little. Naturally, they were full of gratitude towards Jing Yun Zhao. However, Jing Yun Zhao had the same attitude from beginning to end. He was neither arrogant nor rash, which made people have a good impression of him. As soon as the parent-teacher conference ended, Jing Yun Zhao contacted the parents and brothers of the once incomparably glorious Mrs. He. A few months later. In an ordinary courtyard in Ning City, Han Qin was lying on the bed. She had just eaten painkillers that she spent a lot of her private money to buy, so that she could sleep peacefully. However, the door was kicked open by someone, and another woman directly pulled Han Qin from the bed. Sister-in-law, let go. I didn't sleep well last night, I want to rest now. Han Qin immediately struggled. The Han family's sister-in-law stared at her sister-in-law in disgust. You want to rest? You've moved here for so long, but you haven't done any work. You were used to being a rich family's wife, so we won't say anything. We won't let you go out to work, but you should at least do some housework. Now, you have to stretch out your hand and open your mouth every day. Do you think your brother and I are nannies or servants? After all, Han Chin was once a member of the He family. He really wouldn't be so heartless as to completely cut off all ties with her. Even if they couldn't remarry, he should at least give her some alimony. However, they didn't expect that the reality was completely different from what they had imagined. Not only did they have no money, they even took back all the assets they had accumulated over the years. Her husband used to work in the He family's company, but he was fired now. The whole family didn't even have a job and could only rely on their savings. Not only that, they even had to send He Jiaxi over today. There was going to be another freeloader in the family. When Han Chin heard that her sister-in-law was so rude, she immediately became angry. I've helped you a lot over the years. Now that I'm not feeling well, I just need you to take care of me. What right do you have to turn against me? She had asked her husband for the house they used to live in, and she had spent money to buy the car for her brother, not to mention the other expenses. That was in the past. What's more, the things you gave us are gone now. The Han family's sister-in-law didn't back down. In the past, the Han family had benefited from Han Chin. Although they weren't a rich family, they were still better than the poor. Their days were very comfortable, and they had even gotten used to their position after so many years. They didn't expect that one day, they would fall from heaven to hell. The Han family's sister-in-law didn't want to talk nonsense with her sister-in-law. She remembered how her sister-in-law used to look down on her every time she went to the He family's house. She snorted coldly and directly dragged her out by force. Chapter 644. Han Chin had been married into the He family for nearly 20 years. After being a rich lady for so long, her strength could no longer be compared to ordinary people. She was extremely delicate and couldn't be compared to her sister-in-law. Did you offend that Miss Jing? Han Chin, she told me to tell you that it's karma and that you should enjoy it. If you're living well, then your brother can forget about finding a job in this lifetime. You can't blame me if you want to blame someone. As soon as her sister-in-law said that, Jing Yunzhao's face suddenly appeared in Han Chin's mind. She had only seen that face once, but after that, her body began to suffer from pain and torment. Before that, she thought that she only needed to make some simple arrangements to thoroughly trap such a girl. So, at that time, in order to help her daughter vent her anger, she inquired about Jing Yunzhao's situation and then bribed a pair of parents. At that time, she thought that as long as that pair of parents looked after her well, no matter how capable Jing Yunzhao was, she wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. However, she didn't expect that Jing Yunzhao would personally send that pair of parents to prison. That was one thing, but she actually came looking for revenge. It turned out that her brother and sister-in-law treated her like this because of that wild girl. In her anger, she felt that the painkillers didn't seem to have much effect. Her whole body felt as if it was constantly being pricked by needles. At this time, He Jiaxi was sent back from the hospital. Looking at the ordinary courtyard in front of her, He Jiaxi couldn't stop crying. She stayed in the hospital for an extra month because she didn't believe that her father would completely abandon her. However, ever since her father kicked her out of the VIP ward, she really didn't see him again. When she could leave the hospital, she secretly ran to the He family. However, at that time, she found out that her father had remarried. The illegitimate son she hated the most in the past was now the real young master of the He family. That pair of mother and son humiliated her. Her father was clearly at home, but he simply refused to see her. In the end, he directly asked the security to kick her out. He Jiaxi stepped into the courtyard with a puzzled heart. In the courtyard, her mother's hair was disheveled and her aunt next to her had a ferocious expression. Just as she was about to scold her, her aunt walked over and grabbed her hair, dragging her over. "I know you two don't know how to cook, but you should be able to do housework, right? Clean the courtyard and the stove in the kitchen. Make sure there's not a speck of dust. Otherwise, there won't be any dinner for you." Hijiasi's eyes widened as if she didn't recognize the woman in front of her. Was this still her aunt? That aunt who used to bow and scrape every time she saw her, wanting to get benefits from her. "Mom, what's going on? Why is Dad doing this to us? Let's go back and look for him, okay? I don't want to live in this kind of lousy place." As soon as her aunt left, Hijiasi cried. Han Qin's body was trembling from the pain, and her eyes were filled with tears. "Your father knows that we killed someone." As soon as she said this, Hijiasi felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. "Mom, didn't you say it was fine? Didn't you say that Dad would never find out?" Hijiasi roared. Han Qin was even more flustered. Without the He family, she would have no money. Her private savings would soon be used up and she wouldn't be able to afford painkillers. "Cece, take Mom to beg Jing Yunzhao, okay? I've had enough. It's really painful." Han Qin burst into tears. When Jing Yunzhao was mentioned, a trace of fear flashed through Hijiasi's eyes. In his mind, the feeling of being shot by the man beside Jing Yunzhao floated up. She shook her head repeatedly. Chapter 645. For Jing Yunzhao, the mother and son had become parasites that couldn't even compare to ordinary people. If she had fallen into Han Qin and Hijiasi's trap, her life would have been no different from Han Qin's. How could she ignore the pain of being tortured by her own family? Now that she saw that Han Qin and Hijiasi weren't doing well, she was relieved. "Cousin, do you want to call that brother by to ask about it? My dad said that there's a company that sells wines similar to Yuling wines, but the price is much cheaper. And because it's just listed, there's a lot of activity, so it's quite popular now." Seeing Jing Yunzhao in a daze, Suchu thought she was worried about Yuling wines, so she quickly said. Jing Yunzhao was dazed for a moment, then she pursed her lips and smiled. "It's okay, Brother Bai is happy now." "Why?" Suchu was puzzled. Isn't this vicious competition in the business? Encountering this kind of thing should be irritating. After all, the other party's price was relatively low, and she heard that they spent a lot of money on publicity and invited a popular first-rate young man. After this hit, Yuling wines will definitely suffer a great loss. Jing Yunzhao secretly smiled. "You'll know in a few days." Suchu was even more confused after hearing this. Jing Yunzhao chuckled and didn't say much. When she went home at night, she called Pak Yuan to ask about the current situation. According to the original plan, because the other party's price was low, they snatched a lot of orders from Yuling Wines. At present, Yuling Wines was in a panic, but fortunately, it wasn't a listed company, and the capital chain was very complete, so there was no need to worry about a collapse. So, according to Jing Yunzhao's plan, they continued to produce. After all, it wouldn't be long before Yuling Wines showed its glory. Everything Zhua Haiyang and James did now was to pave the way for Yuling Wines. She really wanted to thank them in person. However, although Jing Yunzhao was just thinking about it, some people self-righteously came to the door. Zhua Haiyang was in high spirits. He wore an expensive suit and drove a luxurious car to the entrance of the school. When he saw Jing Yunzhao, he got out of the car. His shiny leather shoes were stained with dust, and the staff beside him immediately squatted down to help wipe it. It was as if a successful person was wagging its peacock tail, feeling pleased with itself. "Miss Jing, Shua Haiyang blocked Jing Yunzhao's path and called out with a smile, "Can we have a chat?" Shua Haiyang wasn't old, and his appearance wasn't bad. From an outsider's point of view, they might even think of him as a gentleman. However, Jing Yunzhao was very clear that this person was a wolf in sheep's clothing. "Is there anything Boss Shua needs to say to a nobody like me?" Jing Yunzhao asked, even though he already knew the answer. "Miss Jing, you may be young, but you're a smart person. You don't have to play dumb with me." Shua Haiyang smiled and said, "I made a reservation at Yutian Xian. Do you want to do me the honor?" Yutian Xian. Jing Yunzhao snorted softly. Yutian Xian's reputation was not small. It seemed that Shua Haiyang knew about it, but he did not know that she was also the third boss of Yutian Xian. That place was funded by Li Xiaoyun, managed by Du Lin, and opened with her providing the raw materials. In Du Lin's words, it was fine without Li Xiaoyun, but it couldn't do without her. "Okay, let's go then," Jing Yunzhao said when she saw Shua Haiyang's pretentious look. Chapter 646. Shua Haiyang's expression relaxed and his heart revealed some satisfaction. He pretended to be a gentleman and opened the door for Jing Yunzhao. This was Jing Yunzhao's first official meeting with Shua Haiyang, but this time, she realized that she had not only seen him in the past, but also in the past, whenever she was with Pak Yuan, she seemed to be able to see this person's figure around them. However, because it didn't seem like he was following her and it seemed more like a chance encounter, she didn't pay much attention to it. Now, it seemed that Shua Haiyang had been interested in Yuling wine's recipe for a long time, but he didn't know that the recipe belonged to her, so although he was curious about her, he didn't make a move on her. The reason he appeared beside her at that time was probably because he was paying attention to Pak Yuan. Jing Yunzhao remained silent the whole way, and when she arrived at the restaurant, she was led to a private room upstairs by the waiter. "I've heard that the dishes here are excellent, and you can't find any restaurant in Ning City that tastes better than Yutian Xian. Miss Jing actually lives in Huaning County, so you should have tried it before, right?" Shua Haiyang smiled. His eyes seemed to be sizing her up, and there seemed to be a wretched expression that people didn't like. The waiter on the side was puzzled. He thought that Miss Jing had brought a guest over, but he didn't expect the other party to take the initiative to invite her. Since he invited Miss Jing, how could he not know her relationship with the owner? However, since Miss Jing didn't say anything, they naturally wouldn't open their mouths. "I've been here," Jing Yunzhao concisely said. "Mr. Zhua, if you have something to say, it's best that you say it quickly, because my time is limited." "Hee hee." Shua Haiyang laughed. Miss Jing's temper really isn't good, no wonder she could make James so angry. "I heard that he Geely went to see you before kicking his daughter out. It seems that it has something to do with you." "What? Is Mr. Shua here to denounce me?" "Come to think of it, you're James' dog, and he Jiasi is James' lover. It's only right that you seek justice for he Jiasi." Jing Yunzhao coldly laughed. Shua Haiyang's face darkened when he heard this. He asked the waiter to pour some wine, but when he saw the exquisite wine bottle in the waiter's hand, a trace of disgust flashed in his eyes. "No sea blue alcohol liquid?" Shua Haiyang asked with a frown. The sea blue alcohol solution was naturally a brand developed by the Ocean Company, and it was currently very popular. The waiter paused for a moment, then smiled and said, "I'm sorry, sir. Our store pays attention to health, and all the brands of wine we use are produced by Yuling Wine. If you're not satisfied with white wine, we have other fruit wines, medicinal wines, rice wines, and even red wine." Shua Haiyang's face turned ferocious when he heard this. He held his cup and sneered, "Pay attention to health. So you're saying that the sea blue alcohol liquor isn't good for your health? It seems that your boss doesn't know how to do business." So far, this is the first time I've seen a restaurant that only buys one bottle of wine. Currently, his company had received countless orders. Because of the affordable price, many people who originally liked the Jade Spirit Wine Company began to buy the Sea Blue alcohol liquor series. It could be said that there was a tide of good reviews. However, there were still loyal fans of Yuling wines who were nitpicking. He actually said that it didn't taste as good as the Jade Spirit wine, and even said that he felt uncomfortable after drinking it. It was all bullshit. Those were just a bunch of people who were nitpicking. Zhua Haiyang drank it in one gulp, then wiped his mouth and said, "Waiter, you can leave now. I'll call you if there's anything." The waiter glanced at Jing Yunzhao and was a little worried. Because although this man looked well-dressed, he didn't seem very safe. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.